rejected by her alpha son for her stepsister until the alpha king claimed her as his mate. The hidden Luna bloodline. The moon had always been cruel to her. Every month, when silver light spilled across the forest surrounding Black Hollow Pack, wolves celebrated what she could not become. Children shifted beneath the stars for the first time. Young wolves laughed as they discovered their strength. Future alphas trained beneath the moonlight while elders praised their bloodlines and destiny. And Seraphina Vale stood alone in the shadows, pretending none of it hurt, because at 18 years old, she still had no wolf. Or, at least, that was what everyone believed. Inside Black Hollow, being wolfless was worse than weakness. It was shame. An Omega without a wolf was barely considered part of the pack at all. She was tolerated, not loved. Ignored, not protected. The servants ate beside her, sometimes even beneath her. Whispers followed her through the pack halls like ghosts. Cursed girl. Broken bloodline. Moon forgotten. Seraphina had learned long ago that silence was safer than pain. So she lowered her eyes, kept her head down, and survived. But survival came at a cost. Especially when the people meant to protect you became the ones destroying you piece by piece. Her father, once a respected beta, rarely looked at her anymore. Grief and fear had hollowed him into a weak man who obeyed his second wife without question. And Marianne Vale ruled their household with cold precision. Everything belonged to her daughter. The finest gowns, the admiration of the pack, the future title of Luna. Celeste Vale was everything Black Hollow worshipped. Beautiful, powerful, chosen. Her golden wolf was considered one of the rarest among the Western territories, and from the moment she shifted at 13, the pack adored her. They adored her even more when Alpha Lucian Ashford began courting her publicly. The future Alpha and the future Luna. Perfect together. At least that was the story Black Hollow believed. Only a few aging elders still remembered the truth. Years ago, before death poisoned the Vale bloodline, another future had been promised. A future tied not to Celeste, but to Seraphina. Before her mother died, Seraphina had been born beneath a blood moon, marked by ancient lunar sigils across her shoulders. The old wolves whispered then that the moon goddess herself had touched the child. 3 nights later, Seraphina's mother was dead, and by the next full moon, the child's wolf vanished. The elders had questions, but Marianne had answers prepared before anyone could speak them aloud. The child was weak. The markings meant nothing. The bloodline had ended with her mother. And over time, the pack accepted the lie because it was easier than fearing what the truth might mean. Only Seraphina never fully believed it. Because sometimes, late at night, she felt something moving beneath her skin. Not sickness. Not madness. Something alive. Something waiting. But every time she tried to hold on to it, pain followed. Burning agony. As if chains buried inside her soul tightened until she could barely breathe. So, eventually, she stopped trying. The night everything changed began like every other humiliation in her life. Silent, cold, and under the watching eye of the moon. The entire Black Hollow pack gathered inside the ceremonial hall for the moon bonding ceremony, an ancient tradition where future unions were formally recognized before the pack and the goddess herself. Torches lined the stone walls. Music echoed through the massive chamber. Wolves laughed, drank, and celebrated. At the center of it all stood Lucian Ashford and Celeste Vale. Beautiful, admired, untouchable. Seraphina remained near the back in a plain silver dress Marianne had chosen specifically to make her disappear beside Celeste's gold. "You should be grateful you're even allowed here," Marianne whispered as she passed her. "Do not embarrass this family tonight." Seraphina said nothing. What was there left to say? Everyone already knew why she had truly been summoned. Tonight was not just a bonding ceremony. It was a rejection. Years ago, before her mother's death, a political agreement had tied Seraphina to Lucian as future mates to strengthen pack alliances. But no alpha would ever willingly bind himself to a wolfless Omega. Especially not Lucian. And everyone in Black Hollow wanted to watch him sever the final connection publicly. A final humiliation before he officially claimed Celeste instead. The room quieted as Lucien stepped forward.
Tall.
Handsome, cruel in the effortless way powerful men often became. His eyes swept over the gathered wolves before finally landing on Seraphina. There was no kindness there, only impatience. "Seraphina Vale," he called. Every gaze in the hall turned toward her. Her chest tightened. Still, she forced herself forward. One step, then another. The moonlight pouring through the high windows suddenly felt unbearably cold against her skin. Lucien extended his hand toward Celeste without looking away from Seraphina. "I reject the bond arranged between us." The words echoed through the chamber. "I refuse you as my future mate and Luna." Laughter whispered through parts of the crowd. Seraphina lowered her eyes. She had prepared for this, told herself it would not hurt, but pain still carved through her chest like a blade. Lucien pulled Celeste beside him proudly. "I choose the wolf worthy of standing beside me." Applause erupted, and somewhere deep inside Seraphina, something cracked. Not her heart. Something far older, far more dangerous. The torches flickered violently. A sudden pulse of power tore through the hall. Several wolves staggered. Others growled instinctively. Then silence fell. Complete. Terrifying. Because at the entrance of a ceremonial hall, someone else had arrived. The Alpha King of the North. Alpha Kale Draven. Tall and draped in black, Kale entered like the storm itself. Power rolled from him in suffocating waves, forcing weaker wolves to lower their heads instinctively. But Kale was not looking at Lucien or Celeste. His eyes locked directly onto Seraphina, and for the first time in 18 years, the thing buried beneath her suppression opened its eyes. The girl they called Wolfless. The moon hung low above Black Hollow Pack like a watchful eye. Cold silver light spilled across the forest and crawled over the stone walls of the Pack estate, illuminating banners marked with the Ashford crest. Wolves moved through the grounds in celebration, their laughter carrying through the night air as servants rushed between bonfires and banquet tables. Tonight was sacred. The moon bonding ceremony only happened once every 5 years, when future alphas formally announced their chosen mates before the pack and the moon goddess herself. For everyone else, it was a night of excitement. For Seraphina Vale, it felt like an execution. She stood alone beneath the upper balcony of the eastern hall, hidden partially behind stone columns while wolves passed by without seeing her. Or, worst, pretending not to. Servants carried silver trays filled with wine. Young she-wolves adjusted shimmering dresses while laughing nervously about future bonds. Warriors in black ceremonial uniforms lined the entrance to the great hall where the ceremony would soon begin. And Seraphina remained exactly where she always had in Black Hollow. Outside of everything. "You're in the way." The sharp voice pulled her from her thoughts. A servant shoved past her carrying folded fabrics. Seraphina stepped back immediately.
"Sorry."
The servant barely looked at her before disappearing into the crowd. The apology settled heavily inside her chest anyway. It always did. At 18 years old, Seraphina had learned one truth better than anyone in the pack. Existing quietly made people more comfortable. Her fingers tightened around the sleeves of her pale silver dress, the fabric rough against her skin. Marian had chosen it personally.
Plain.
Simple. Forgettable. Especially compared to the gown waiting upstairs for Celeste. Gold silk. Hand-beaded crystal. A Luna's dress. Seraphina lowered her eyes.
She should have been used to it by now.
But tonight felt worse. Maybe because deep down some small broken part of her had once believed things might have been different. Before her mother died. Before the whispers started. Before the pack decided she was cursed. A sudden burst of laughter echoed from the staircase above. Seraphina looked up instinctively. And there she was. Celeste Vale descended the grand staircase like she had been born for worship. Golden curls framed her flawless face. Jewels glittered against the warm bronze of her gown. And behind her walked several young she-wolves carrying the edge of her train while complimenting her appearance. "You look stunning. Future Luna of Black Hollow. No one could compare to your wolf." Celeste smiled gracefully at every word. Then her gaze landed on Seraphina. The smile sharpened. Not openly cruel. That would have been easier. No, Celeste preferred the softer kind of cruelty. The kind disguised as pity. Oh, she said lightly. You're actually ready. Seraphina forced herself not to react. Yes. Celeste stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough that others could still hear pieces of it. I know tonight might be difficult for you. The girls behind her exchanged glances. Seraphina remained silent. Celeste tilted her head sympathetically. But honestly, this is better for everyone. There it was. The truth beneath the kindness. Lucien was choosing her tonight.
Publicly.
Officially. And everyone knew it. Even if the old agreement between Lucien and Seraphina had never technically been broken. You should try to smile during the ceremony, Celeste continued gently. People already think you hate me. Seraphina met her eyes for the first time. I don't hate you. Celeste blinked. For half a second, something unreadable crossed her expression. Then Marianne's voice cut through the moment. Celeste. Marianne Vale appeared at the top of the stairs in dark emerald silk, every inch the perfect beta widow. Her sharp eyes immediately found Seraphina. Disapproval followed instantly. You're still standing here? Marianne asked coldly. The lower hall hasn't been cleaned. I already finished. Then check it again. Seraphina lowered her gaze immediately. Yes, ma'am. Celeste watched quietly as Seraphina moved toward the serving corridors. Not once offering to help. Not once stopping her mother. Because this was the balance of Black Hollow. Celeste shined. Seraphina disappeared. And everyone preferred it that way. The lower halls beneath the ceremonial chambers were silent except for the crackling of torches along the walls. Seraphina moved slowly through the empty corridor carrying fresh linens against her chest, grateful for the temporary quiet. Upstairs, music echoed faintly through the stone ceilings. The ceremony would begin soon. She should have dreaded it entirely. Instead, exhaustion numbed most of the pain. Lucien rejecting her publicly was not truly the humiliation. The humiliation had started years ago. Tonight was simply the ending everyone had already accepted. As she turned the corner near the old archives, a sudden sharp pain tore through her chest. Seraphina gasped. The linen slipped from her hands. A burning sensation spread beneath her ribs, violent enough to force her against the wall. Again. It was happening again. Her breathing became uneven as heat curled beneath her skin like claws dragging through her veins. Pain radiated down her spine. Then came the voice.
Soft.
Distant.
Meanie.
Seraphina's eyes widened.
No. Not now.
She pressed trembling fingers against her chest. The sensation grew stronger. Not sickness. Not weakness. Something alive. Something furious. A pulse of silver light flashed briefly beneath her skin before disappearing. Seraphina stumbled backward in panic. No, she whispered. The voice came again. Awaken. A sudden crash echoed somewhere above as wolves roared loudly inside the ceremonial hall. The bond ceremony had begun. The burning intensified.
Chains.
That was what it felt like. Invisible chains tightening around her soul every time whatever lived inside her tried to rise. Tears burned her eyes as she fought to breathe through the agony. Why did this keep happening? Why did it always feel like something inside her was trying to claw free? Footsteps suddenly echoed down the corridor. Seraphina straightened immediately, wiping her face before anyone could see. An elderly man stepped from the shadows near the archive doors. Elder Rowan. One of the oldest wolves in Black Hollow. Unlike most of the pack, he never looked at Seraphina with disgust. Tonight, however, he looked terrified. You need to leave, he said urgently. Seraphina frowned. What? Before the ceremony ends. Confusion crossed her face. I don't understand. Rowan stepped closer carefully, lowering his voice. He's here. A strange chill moved through her. Who? The elder hesitated, then quietly answered, the Alpha King. The corridor fell silent. Even hearing the title made wolves uneasy. Alpha Kale Draven was not merely an alpha. He was the ruler of the northern kingdoms, the youngest Alpha King in over a century, a warborn wolf who had taken his throne through blood and conquest after defeating 3 rival alphas before the age of 23. Entire packs feared him. Stories claimed his wolf was nearly impossible to control, that he could silence weaker wolves with a single command, that even dominant alphas lowered their eyes in his presence. Seraphina swallowed uneasily. Why would he come here? Elder Rowan's expression darkened. For the same reason everyone eventually comes when royal blood awakens. Her stomach dropped. Before she could respond, a howl thundered through the estate above them. Not ordinary, dominant, ancient. Every torch in the corridor flickered violently, and deep inside Seraphina, something answered. The howl echoed through Black Hollow, like the sound of war. Every wolf in the estate froze. Torches flickered violently along the corridor walls as power rolled through the packed grounds in suffocating waves. Above the lower halls, voices rose in confusion inside the ceremonial chamber. Seraphina's breath caught painfully in her throat. Something inside her answered the howl instinctively, not with fear, recognition. The sensation nearly dropped her to her knees. Elder Rowan grabbed her arm before she could fall completely. "You need to go," he whispered urgently. "What's happening to me?" she asked shakily. But the old wolf's expression only darkened further. He should never have come here. Another pulse of power thundered through the estate. This time, Seraphina felt it beneath her skin. The chains tightened. Pain exploded down her spine. A broken gasp escaped her lips as silver light flickered faintly beneath the veins along her wrists. Rowan saw it, and terror filled his eyes. "The suppression is weakening." Seraphina stared at him. The word hit harder than the pain. Suppression. Not weakness. Not brokenness. Something done to her. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. But before Rowan could answer, a voice thundered from above. "Bring Seraphina Vale to the ceremonial hall immediately." Alpha Lucian. The command carried unmistakable authority through the estate. Rowan cursed quietly beneath his breath. "No," he muttered. "Not yet." But footsteps were already approaching rapidly through the corridor. Pack guards. Searching for her. Seraphina wiped quickly at the tears burning her eyes and forced herself upright despite the agony tearing through her body. Whatever was happening, she could not afford to look weak now. Not tonight. Especially not in front of them. The guards rounded the corner moments later. "There you are," one snapped impatiently. "The ceremony cannot continue without you." Without another word, they escorted her back toward the upper hall, toward her humiliation,
Toward the moon.
and toward the stranger whose presence made every wolf in the territory uneasy. The great ceremonial chamber had fallen into complete silence by the time Seraphina entered. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her instantly, judging, mocking, watching. The massive hall glowed beneath silver moonlight pouring through towering arched windows. Ancient banners hung from the stone walls, while wolves lined both sides of the chamber in formal black ceremonial attire. At the center stood the Ashford bloodline. Future Alpha Lucian Ashford stood beside Celeste beneath the ceremonial dais, his hand resting possessively against her waist. Celeste looked radiant in gold, victorious. And beside them stood the most dangerous wolf Seraphina had ever seen, Alpha Kale Draven. The Alpha King wore black ceremonial armor detailed with silver markings that shimmered faintly beneath the moonlight. His dark hair fell carelessly around sharp features hardened by war and power. But it was his eyes that stole the breath from her lungs. Cold,
Piercing.
predatory, and locked completely onto her. The room felt suddenly too small, too warm. Every instinct inside Seraphina screamed at her to run. Yet she could not move. Kale's expression did not change as she approached, but something dangerous shifted in the air around him. Like his wolf had awakened. Lucian noticed it immediately. Tension hardened his jaw. "This matter does not concern the crown," Lucian said carefully, addressing Kale, while keeping his tone respectful. "The arranged bond is simply being dissolved before the pack." Kale said nothing, still staring at Seraphina. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Even dominant wolves began lowering their eyes beneath the pressure radiating from the Alpha King. Finally, Kale spoke. Her. One word. Low and lethal. Lucien frowned slightly.
Yes. Serafina Vale.
Kale took a single step forward, and Serafina's pulse exploded. The chains inside her soul tightened violently. Pain ripped through her chest, so suddenly she gasped aloud. Several wolves turned sharply toward her. Kale's eyes narrowed instantly. He heard it, felt it. Whatever lived buried inside her, his wolf recognized it.
Impossible.
Lucien stepped forward protectively in front of Celeste. She is wolfless, he said firmly. An Omega by blood. There is nothing unusual about her. The moment the words left his mouth, Kale's expression darkened. Not with confusion, with anger. A dangerous, controlled fury. His gaze slowly returned to Serafina. Who told you that? He asked quietly. The question was directed at her, not Lucien. Serafina's throat tightened. She didn't know how to answer, because suddenly she wasn't sure anymore. Kale inhaled slowly, and everything changed. The Alpha King's wolf surged beneath the surface hard enough that several wolves in the chamber staggered backward. A growl rumbled low in his chest. Not aggressive toward her. Protective. Possessive. Ancient. Shock rippled through the hall. No, one elder whispered. Another wolf dropped to one knee instinctively. Because dominant wolves only reacted that way to overwhelming bloodline authority. Kale's eyes never left Serafina. She is not wolfless. The words landed like thunder. Marianne immediately stepped forward. With respect, Alpha King, she said smoothly. My stepdaughter has never shifted. The poor girl simply lacks a wolf.
Lies.
The word hissed suddenly inside Serafina's mind. She flinched.
The voice again. Closer this time. Awake.
Her breathing became uneven. Heat spread beneath her skin. Silver flickered again beneath her veins. Kale noticed immediately. His gaze sharpened. Then suddenly, Lucien reached for Celeste's hand and raised it before the pack. I formally reject Serafina Vale, he declared loudly, and choose Celeste Vale as my future mate and Luna. Applause erupted instantly from parts of the chamber. But the moment the rejection finalized, Serafina screamed. Pain exploded through her body like fire tearing through chains. The floor beneath her feet cracked. Moonlight burst violently across the chamber. And somewhere deep beneath 18 years of suppression, a wolf roared awake. The scream that tore from Serafina's throat did not sound human. It sounded ancient.
Wild.
Power exploded through the ceremonial hall in violent waves, shattering goblets and extinguishing nearly every torch lining the walls. Wolves stumbled backward as invisible force rolled across the chamber like a storm unleashed beneath the moon. Cracks splintered across the stone floor beneath Serafina's feet. And still the pain worsened. She collapsed to her knees gasping. Silver light erupted beneath her skin in glowing veins that crawled up her arms and throat like moonfire trapped beneath flesh. The chains were breaking. Everyone could feel it. Fear spread instantly through Black Hollow. Several wolves shifted uncontrollably from the pressure flooding the chamber. Others backed away entirely. Because no Omega should possess power like this.
No, Marianne whispered.
For the first time since Serafina could remember, her stepmother looked terrified. Lucien stared in disbelief. What is this? Beside him, Celeste's face had gone pale beneath her carefully painted beauty. The admiration she usually commanded from the room was gone. All attention had shifted. To Serafina. To the impossible. At the center of the chaos, Alpha King Kale Draven stood perfectly still. Watching her. His wolf was no longer hidden. Every dominant wolf in the chamber could feel it pressing against the edges of control. Ancient power saturated the air around him so heavily that weaker wolves instinctively lowered themselves toward the floor. But Kale never looked away from Serafina. Not once. As if he had been waiting for this. Serafina clutched at her chest desperately as another wave of agony tore through her body. Something inside her was fighting to rise. She could feel claws scraping beneath her skin. feel a heartbeat that was not entirely her own. The voice returned again. Stronger now.
Mine.
Her breath hitched. No, she whispered weakly. Not mine. Not possible. She had no wolf. Her entire life. A memory slammed violently into her mind. Silver eyes. A woman's voice.
Run.
Then blood. So much blood. Serafina gasped sharply as the vision vanished. The pain became unbearable. Another scream ripped from her throat. And suddenly, a howl answered. Not from outside. From inside her. The sound shook the entire chamber. Several wolves dropped fully to their knees. An elder began praying beneath his breath, because every wolf in Black Hollow recognized what they were hearing. Not weakness. Not an omega. A royal wolf. Kale moved first. In one terrifyingly fast motion, the Alpha King crossed the chamber and reached her before anyone else could react. The moment his hand touched her shoulder, everything exploded. Silver light burst violently outward. A massive shockwave tore through the ceremonial hall hard enough to send wolves crashing backward into pillars and tables. The moon bond snapped into place. Kale froze. Serafina felt it instantly. A tether.
Deep.
Primal. Ancient beyond comprehension. Every breath inside her suddenly aligned with his. Every instinct inside her wolf surged toward him.
Mate.
The word thundered through her soul. Kale's eyes darkened instantly. Not shock. Recognition. Possession. The Alpha King's wolf had found its equal. And it had chosen her. Impossible silence filled the chamber. Then Lucien laughed once in disbelief.
No.
The word cracked sharply through the room. This is impossible. Kale slowly lifted his gaze toward him. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop instantly. Lucien straightened stubbornly despite the pressure radiating from the Alpha King.
She is nobody, he snapped.
A wolfless omega does not become mated to a king. Kale's expression became lethal. She is not wolfless. The growl beneath his voice made several wolves flinch. Lucien stepped forward anyway. You don't understand what she is.
No, Gaeli Blythe Goldly.
I understand exactly what she is. His hand remained against Serafina's shoulder. Protective. Possessive. And the moment he touched her, the pain inside her eased slightly for the first time all night. The chains weakened further. Silver markings suddenly flashed across Serafina's collarbone. The room gasped collectively. Ancient lunar sigils glowed beneath her skin like living moonlight. Elder Rowan closed his eyes heavily. The royal line, he whispered. Marion spun toward him immediately. Silence. But it was too late. The room had already heard. Kale's eyes narrowed dangerously. Royal line, he repeated. No one answered. Fear spread visibly through the pack leadership. And suddenly Kale understood something very important. They knew. All these years. They had known. Serafina looked between them in confusion and pain. What are they talking about? No one moved. No one answered her. Until finally Elder Rowan stepped forward slowly. Tears filled the old wolf's eyes. Your mother, he said shakily, was not simply a beta's mate. Marianne's face strained of color. Enough. But Rowan ignored her completely. She came from the house of Lunareth. The chamber erupted instantly into chaos. Wolves shouted in disbelief. Others stepped backward in horror. Because every wolf knew the ancient stories. The House of Lunareth had ruled beside the Moon King centuries ago before the royal Luna bloodline vanished during the Blood Wars. Extinct. Destroyed.
Gone.
Until now. Serafina stared at Rowan helplessly. No, she whispered. It couldn't be true. Nothing about this could be true. Her entire life, she had been told she was weak, broken, worthless. But Kale's gaze never wavered. As if he had already accepted the truth long before she had. Lucien's face twisted with panic. You're lying. But even he sounded uncertain now. Because his wolf could feel it too. Every wolf in the chamber could. Royal blood carried authority. And Serafina's presence was already beginning to affect the entire room. The moon goddess herself was answering her awakening. Kale slowly turned toward the gathered pack. then spoke the words that shattered Black Hollow forever. She belongs to no one here. His voice echoed like thunder. She is mine. And, beneath the moonlight, Seraphina's wolf finally opened its silver eyes completely. No one breathed. The entire ceremonial chamber remained frozen beneath the weight of Alpha King Kale Draven's declaration. She is mine. The words still echoed against the stone walls like a sentence passed by the moon itself. At the center of the chamber, Seraphina Vale knelt surrounded by silver light and shattered stone, her body trembling violently as ancient power continued awakening beneath her skin. The markings spreading across her arms glowed brighter now. Living moonlight. Royal sigils. Beautiful, terrifying, and impossible to deny. Kale stood beside her like darkness wrapped in flesh and steel, one hand still resting against her shoulder while his wolf pressed heavily against the restraint of human form. Possessive. Protective. Every wolf in the room could feel it. The Alpha King had found his mate, and the Moon Goddess herself had recognized the bond. Lucian Ashford looked seconds away from losing control entirely. "No," he said again, harsher this time. "This cannot happen." His voice cracked across the chamber, but even he sounded uncertain now. Because his wolf knew. Every wolf knew. The bond between mates could not be mistaken. Especially not one strong enough to shake an entire territory. Beside him, Celeste Vale stared at Seraphina with widening horror. Not jealousy. Not yet.
Fear.
For the first time in her life, Celeste was no longer the center of the room, and she had no idea how to survive that. "This is some kind of trick," Lucian snarled. Kale finally looked at him fully. The chamber temperature seemed to drop instantly. "You believe your understanding outweighs the Moon Goddess?" Lucian stiffened. "No, but..." "Then choose your next words carefully." The warning beneath Kale's calm tone sent visible unease through the gathered wolves. Even Lucian stepped back instinctively, because Kale Draven was not merely stronger than him. He was stronger than nearly every alpha alive. War had carved ruthlessness into him long before he ever took the throne. Stories claimed Kale once killed an alpha challenger barehanded after the man insulted his mother. Others claimed entire packs surrendered rather than face his wolf. And now that same monster stood beside Seraphina, like a king guarding his queen. The realization shook Black Hollow to its core. A weak sound escaped Seraphina as another pulse of pain tore through her chest. Kale immediately crouched beside her. "Look at me." His voice lowered, still commanding, but gentler now. Seraphina forced herself to lift her gaze. The moment their eyes met, the bond tightened again. Warmth spread through her body despite the agony. Safe. The feeling startled her. No one had ever made her feel safe before. Not truly. Kale's fingers brushed lightly beneath her chin. "Breathe." The command settled directly into her wolf. And somehow, she obeyed. The silver light surrounding her steadied slightly. Gasps spread quietly through the room. A dominant alpha should not have been able to calm an awakening royal wolf so easily unless the mate bond was real, absolute, ancient. Elder Rowan slowly lowered himself to one knee. Others followed, then more. One by one, wolves across the chamber bowed their heads toward Seraphina. Not to Kale. To her. Marianne's face twisted with fury. "Stop this immediately," she snapped. "She is not your Luna." Kale rose slowly to his full height. Danger rolled from him instantly. "What she is," he said coldly, "will no longer be decided by this pack." Marianne paled but forced herself forward anyway. She was raised here. Black Hollow has authority over her. Kale's expression darkened further. Authority. The words sounded almost amused. Then his gaze swept across the chamber. Across the wolves who mocked Seraphina. Ignored her. Allowed her humiliation. Allowed her suffering. Allowed 18 years of lies. The Alpha King's wolf surfaced hard enough that several warriors staggered backward. "You chained royal blood beneath your floors," he said quietly. Silence. Dead silence. Kale's eyes sharpened. "You suppressed her wolf." No one answered. But guilt moved visibly across several elder faces. Seraphina stared upward in shock. Suppressed. Again that word. Her heart pounded painfully. You knew, she whispered. The question shattered something inside the room. No one wanted to answer her. Not her father standing near the back trembling silently. Not the elders. Not Marianne. Not even Lucien. Because every second of silence became its own confession. Tears burned Seraphina's eyes. Her entire life. Everything had been a lie. You told me I was broken, she whispered shakily. Her father finally looked at her then, and immediately lowered his gaze in shame. That hurt worse than anything. Cale noticed. Rage flashed briefly across his face. Not uncontrolled. Worse. Controlled rage. The kind that destroyed kingdoms carefully. Seraphina tried to stand, but her legs nearly gave out beneath her. Cale caught her instantly. The room watched in stunned silence as the feared Alpha King studied her with impossible gentleness. As though she were something precious. Something sacred. His hand settled against the small of her back. And her wolf moved instinctively toward him. The feeling terrified her. But it also felt
right.
Lucien saw it too. And panic finally overcame pride. You cannot take her, he snapped. Cale looked at him with visible boredom now. You rejected her. That was before. The room went silent again. Even Celeste stared at Lucien in disbelief. Seraphina's chest tightened painfully. Before he realized she carried power. Before another alpha wanted her. Before she became valuable. Cale's gaze turned lethal. You had your chance. Lucien stepped forward recklessly. She belongs to Black Hollow.
Cale smiled then.
A cold, terrifying smile. No, he said softly. She belongs to the moon. The bond surged violently again. Silver wind exploded through the chamber. And for one impossible moment, a massive silver wolf appeared behind Seraphina, like a spirit rising from moonlight itself. Ancient silver fur. Glowing lunar markings. Eyes like frozen starlight. The entire chamber dropped to their knees instantly. Because royal wolves were not myths after all. And the moon goddess had just revealed her chosen Luna to the world. The silver wolf vanished as suddenly as it appeared. But the terror it left behind remained. No one in the ceremonial hall moved. No one dared. Hundreds of wolves remained bowed beneath the moonlight, their heads lowered toward the girl they had mocked for 18 years. Toward the girl they had called weak. At the center of the shattered chamber, Seraphina Vale struggled to breathe as the last of the silver energy faded slowly from her skin. The markings remained. Thin lunar sigils shimmered faintly across her arms, throat, and collarbone like glowing silver ink beneath pale flesh. Proof. Living proof. She wasn't broken. She never had been. The realization hit harder than the awakening itself. Her entire life had been stolen from her. Cale's hand remained against her back, steady and warm as the room slowly recovered from shock. The Alpha King's gaze swept across Black Hollow with visible disgust. This, he said coldly, is how you treated royal blood? No one answered, because there was no defense. Lucien's jaw clenched hard enough to crack. It changes nothing, he snapped suddenly. Several wolves looked toward him nervously. Even now, pride ruled him more than fear. Cale slowly turned his head. The movement alone carried enough threat to silence the room again. Lucien forced himself to continue. She was raised as pack property beneath Black Hollow law. Even if her bloodline is royal, her claim remains tied here. Seraphina stared at him in disbelief. Property. That was truly how he saw her. Not a person. Not even a former promised mate. Something owned. Something useful only when powerful men decided she had value. Cale's expression darkened lethally. You dare speak of ownership after rejecting the moon's chosen mate before witnesses? Lucien hesitated. For the first time all night, uncertainty entered his eyes. Because ancient mate law was sacred. A public rejection carried consequences. Especially if the rejected mate was later revealed to possess higher bloodline authority. The old laws were merciless about dishonoring royal blood. And suddenly, every elder in the chamber understood exactly how dangerous this situation had become. If Kale invoked royal challenge rights, Black Hollow could lose everything.
Pack lands.
Titles.
Authority.
Possibly even its alpha line. Fear spread visibly among the leadership. Marian saw it immediately. And panic finally broke through her composure. She manipulated this, she hissed. The accusation echoed sharply. Serafina flinched instinctively. Marianne pointed directly at her. She's always wanted attention. She's unstable. You can't trust whatever power appeared tonight. Kale's eyes narrowed dangerously. You will speak carefully. The warning carried enough force to crack stone beneath his boots. But Marianne pressed forward anyway, desperation overcoming caution. She is not fit to stand beside a king. Enough. The roar came from Elder Rowan. The old wolf stepped forward, trembling with fury and grief. You lied to this pack for 18 years, he shouted. You helped bury the last royal Luna bloodline beneath chains. Gasps spread through the chamber. Marianne paled instantly. Careful, Elder.
No, Rowan snapped.
I have been silent too long already. Serafina's chest tightened painfully as the old wolf turned toward her. His eyes softened with visible regret. Your mother begged us to protect you. The room fell silent again. Serafina's throat burned. My mother. Rowan nodded slowly. Celine Lunareth. Even hearing the name felt powerful, ancient,
sacred.
Several older wolves lowered their eyes immediately, because the House of Lunareth had once stood beside kings. Lunas blessed directly by the moon goddess herself. Healers. War leaders.
Queens.
They hunted your bloodline during the Blood Wars. Rowan continued quietly. Most believed the royal line died centuries ago. Serafina struggled to process his words. None of this felt real. My mother never told me, because she feared what would happen if others discovered the truth. Kale remained silent beside her, but Serafina felt the tension rolling through him. Protectiveness. Possession.
Rage.
All directed toward anyone who had hurt her. Rowan's expression darkened. After your birth, the moon marked you immediately. The royal sigils appeared before every elder in this room. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Your wolf awakened inside the womb, Rowan whispered. That had not happened in generations. Serafina's hands trembled. Then why? Because they feared you, Rowan answered softly, as though hearing the question inside her mind. Marianne looked ready to kill him. Your father feared war would follow your existence. Marianne feared her daughter would never rise while you lived. And some elders feared the return of royal blood would divide the territories again. Kale's jaw hardened. So they chained a child. No one answered him, because there was nothing to say. Serafina suddenly felt sick. All those years alone. All those nights crying herself to sleep believing she was worthless. Every cruel whisper. Every humiliation. Every punishment. Built on lies. Her father finally stepped forward from the back of the chamber. Broken. Ashamed. Unable to meet her eyes. Garrick Vale looked far older than she remembered. I tried to protect you, he whispered weakly. Serafina stared at him. Pain hollowed her voice. You let them destroy me. The words struck him harder than any blade. Garrick visibly crumpled beneath the truth of it. Tears filled Serafina's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people. Kale stepped slightly closer beside her. And instantly her wolf calmed again. The bond wrapped around her like warmth against winter.
Safe. Mine.
The possessive growl inside Kale's wolf brushed against her consciousness. Surprisingly, it did not frighten her. Lucien saw the shift immediately. Jealousy twisted across his face. You cannot seriously accept this, he said bitterly. You don't even know her. Kale looked at him with cold amusement. I know enough. Then his gaze returned to Serafina, and for the first time all night, his voice softened completely. She survived. The words nearly broke her, because no one had ever looked at her survival like strength before. Only weakness. Only shame. But Kale looked at her like surviving mattered. Like she mattered. And somehow that hurt most of all. The chamber doors suddenly burst open. A warrior stumbled inside, breathless and pale. Alpha King. His voice shook violently. There are northern banners approaching Black Hollow. Kale's expression sharpened instantly. How many? At least 3 royal battalions. Shock spread through the room. Royal battalions only moved under direct command from the crown, which meant Kale's eyes darkened. They felt her awakening. Fear exploded across Black Hollow. Because if the surrounding kingdoms learned a royal Luna bloodline had survived, war would follow. And standing in the center of it all, still trembling beneath the moonlight, was the girl they once called Ruthless. The horns sounded before dawn.
Low.
Ancient. Powerful enough to shake the mountain cliffs surrounding Black Hollow Pack. Every wolf in the territory felt them. Royal battalions had arrived. Mist rolled heavily across the forests as soldiers, bearing the black and silver crest of the Northern Crown, surrounded the outer borders of the estate. Massive wolves moved between armored warriors while banners snapped violently beneath the storm-dark sky. 3 battalions. Exactly as the messenger warned. Not an invasion force. A containment force. Because royal blood had awakened. And kingdoms did not ignore royal blood. Inside the shattered ceremonial hall, fear spread faster than wildfire. The elders whispered among themselves. Warriors reached for weapons. Servants avoided looking directly at Seraphina Vale as though her existence alone had become dangerous. Maybe it had. At the center of it all, Seraphina sat silently beside one of the broken stone pillars, wrapped in a dark cloak someone had placed around her shoulders after her awakening. Kale's cloak. The realization unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. It still carried his scent. Cold forests.
Smoke.
Winter. And beneath it all, wolf. Her pulse quickened involuntarily. The mate bond remained painfully alive between them. Every movement Kale made registered somewhere deep beneath her skin. Every emotion brushed faintly against her consciousness. Protectiveness. Control. Possession. But something else existed there too. Restraint. As though the Alpha King was holding himself back with brutal discipline. Across the chamber, Kale stood near the shattered windows, speaking quietly with his commanders while moonlight outlined the broad lines of his shoulders. Even at rest, he radiated danger. The gathered wolves avoided meeting his eyes directly. No one wanted to challenge the predator currently standing inside Black Hollow, especially not after witnessing the moon bond. Seraphina lowered her gaze quickly before he noticed her staring. Too late. You should eat. His voice came suddenly from directly beside her. She startled visibly. Kale had crossed the chamber without her noticing. A tray rested in one of his hands.
Food.
Warm bread.
Fruit.
Water. Simple things. But no one had ever personally brought her food before. Certainly not a king. Seraphina stared at the tray uncertainly. I'm not hungry. That was not a question. The command beneath his tone made her wolf stir instantly.
Meaning.
Heat rushed unexpectedly into her face. Kale noticed. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Interest. Satisfaction. Dangerous awareness. The realization mortified her. She quickly looked away. Kale crouched beside her anyway and set the tray down. You lost control of your awakening because your body is exhausted, he said calmly. You need strength. You speak as though you understand this.
Ido.
Her eyes lifted slowly toward him. Kale's gaze remained fixed on her steadily. The first time my wolf surfaced, he said quietly, I destroyed half a fortress. Seraphina blinked. For a moment, the terrifying Alpha King almost sounded human. Then the corner of his mouth shifted faintly. The second time was worse. A startled laugh nearly escaped her before she could stop it. Kale noticed immediately. And something softened briefly in his expression. It vanished almost instantly. But she had seen it. The silence between them settled strangely afterward. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. Seraphina picked slowly at the bread while trying not to notice how close he remained. The mate bond made everything worse. Or perhaps better. She couldn't tell anymore. because every instinct inside her wolf pulled toward him naturally. And for the first time in her life, something inside her no longer felt alone. The thought terrified her. You keep looking at the doors. Kale's voice pulled her from her thoughts. She hesitated. Everyone here hates me.
No.
His answer came immediately. They fear you. That should not have hurt, but somehow it did. Serafina looked down at her hands. Silver markings still glowed faintly beneath her skin. I don't even know what I am. Kale studied her quietly for a long moment, then finally said, You are what they tried to bury. The words settled heavily between them. Serafina swallowed hard. Why do you care? The question escaped before she could stop it. Kale went very still. The mate bond pulsed sharply. His wolf reacted instantly to the question. Possessive heat rolled through the connection hard enough to steal her breath. Careful, he said quietly. Her pulse quickened. With what? Kale leaned slightly closer. With asking questions my wolf already believes it owns the answer to. The air vanished from her lungs. The intensity in his gaze became unbearable. Predatory. Focused entirely on her. Serafina's wolf surged suddenly beneath her skin in response. Not fear. Recognition. Want. The realization startled her badly enough that she stood too quickly. Pain shot through her body instantly. Kale caught her before she fell. One arm wrapped firmly around her waist. And the moment he touched her, the bond exploded with heat. Serafina gasped sharply. Kale's eyes darkened immediately. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Around them, several nearby wolves instinctively backed away, because dominant mating bonds carried power, and theirs was becoming increasingly difficult to contain. Kale released her slowly, but not before his thumb brushed once against the silver marking near her wrist. The touch sent heat racing through her body. Dangerous, he murmured quietly. Serafina barely managed to breathe. What is? His gaze held hers completely. You. Before she could answer, the massive chamber doors burst open. A royal guard entered quickly and dropped to one knee before Kale. My king. Kale's expression hardened instantly. What happened? The southern envoys arrived sooner than expected. Tension swept through the room. Kale stood fully upright. How many? 2 alpha lords. 6 council representatives. Serafina frowned slightly. Why would they come? Kale looked at her carefully. Because every kingdom in the territories just learned the royal Luna bloodline survived. Fear curled coldly through her stomach. The guard continued carefully. They are demanding audience rights. Of course they were. Because Serafina was no longer merely a girl. She was power.
Claim.
Inheritance. A weapon kingdoms would bleed for. Kale's face darkened. Prepare the throne chamber. The guard hesitated. My king, they are specifically requesting to see her. The entire room fell silent again. Kale turned slowly toward Serafina. And for the first time since arriving at Black Hollow, the Alpha King looked concerned. Because outside the safety of this room, wolves were already preparing to fight over her. Rain hammered against Black Hollow by nightfall. Thunder rolled across the mountains while royal soldiers lined every corridor of the estate, their black armor gleaming beneath torchlight. Wolves paced restlessly beyond the walls, agitated by the tension spreading through the territories like wildfire. News traveled fast among packs. A royal Luna had awakened, and now kingdoms were coming to claim her. Inside the eastern tower chambers, Serafina Vale stood silently before a tall mirror while servants adjusted the dark silver gown prepared for her audience before the royal envoys. She barely recognized herself. The girl staring back no longer looked invisible. The silver markings beneath her skin glowed softly against pale flesh, curling along her collarbone and shoulders like living moonlight. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around her face, and for the first time in her life, no one had dressed her to disappear. That frightened her more than the war outside. A knock sounded at the chamber doors. The servants immediately lowered their heads. My king. Kale entered moments later, and the entire room shifted around him. It always did. Alpha Kale Draven wore formal royal black tonight, detailed with silver wolf sigils marking his authority over the northern territories. Heavy dark fabric draped across broad shoulders, while a crown of blackened steel rested against his dark hair. Power radiated from him effortlessly. Not loud, not forced. Simply absolute. The servants quietly retreated almost immediately, leaving Seraphina alone with him. Silence settled between them. Then Kale's eyes lifted fully to her.
And stopped.
The mate bond pulsed hard enough to steal her breath. Heat moved instantly through the connection between them. Kale said nothing for several long seconds. But something dangerous shifted in his expression. Something almost primal. "You should not look at me like that," Seraphina said softly before she could stop herself. The corner of his mouth moved faintly. "And how am I looking at you?" Her pulse quickened, like he already knew the answer. Kale stepped closer slowly. The room suddenly felt far too small. "Do you know what every wolf downstairs believes tonight?" he asked quietly. Seraphina shook her head carefully. "That I came to Black Hollow because of politics." His gaze darkened. "But my wolf knew you were here before I ever entered the territory." The confession sent heat racing through her chest. "That's impossible." "For ordinary bonds," Kale replied. The air between them tightened. The mate bond surged again. Ancient. Hungry. Unavoidable. Kale stopped directly in front of her now. Close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. Close enough to realize just how dangerous he truly was. Not because he might hurt her, because part of her wanted him to touch her again. The realization terrified her. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. He could scent it. The awareness nearly destroyed her composure. "You're afraid," he murmured. "Yes." "Of me?" Seraphina hesitated.
No.
That answer affected him far more than she expected. His wolf surged visibly beneath the surface. Possessive satisfaction rolled violently through the bond. Kale lifted one hand slowly,
Carefully.
as though giving her time to move away. Seraphina didn't. His fingers brushed lightly against the silver marking near her throat. The touch burned. Not painful. Something worse. Intimate. The bond snapped tighter instantly.
Mean.
The word thundered through Kale's wolf hard enough that Seraphina gasped softly. Kale closed his eyes briefly, like restraint physically hurt him. "You feel it too." Not a question. A fact. Seraphina swallowed hard. "Yes." Kale's hand slowly lowered. "That is why you cannot trust anyone downstairs tonight." The softness vanished from his voice immediately. The Alpha King returned. Controlled.
Cold.
Dangerous. They will smile at you while calculating how to use your bloodline. Fear curled sharply through her stomach. The Southern Lords? All of them. Kale moved toward the rain-covered windows overlooking the courtyard below. Torches burned beneath the storm as battalions moved through the grounds like shadows. "Royal blood changes power," he said quietly. "Packs will kill for less than what you carry." Seraphina wrapped her arms around herself tightly. "I don't want any of this." Kale turned toward her slowly. "That no longer matters." The honesty in his voice hurt, because she knew he was right. The girl she had been yesterday no longer existed. Black Hollow had buried her the moment her wolf awakened. Kale watched her carefully for a long moment. Then his expression shifted slightly. "You're shaking." Only then did she realize she was. Not from cold. From fear. Everything was changing too fast. Her wolf. The mate bond. The kingdoms. The lies. Her entire life felt shattered beyond repair. Kale crossed the room again before she could retreat into herself completely. "Look at me." The command settled directly into her wolf again. Steadying. Grounding. Seraphina lifted her gaze reluctantly. Kale's voice lowered. "No one touches you tonight without my permission." The promise carried terrifying certainty. "You cannot fight entire kingdoms alone." A faint smile touched his mouth then. "I would enjoy trying." Despite herself, a breath of laughter escaped her. Kale looked unexpectedly satisfied by the sound. Then suddenly, a pulse of power tore through the mate bond. Violent.
Wrong.
Kale stiffened instantly. His eyes darkened. "What is it?" He moved toward the chamber doors immediately. Another alpha. The words came sharp.
Predatory.
Seraphina's wolf reacted instantly with unease. Moments later, shouting erupted from somewhere below. Then came a roar powerful enough to shake the estate itself. Not Kale. Another dominant alpha. Challenge. The chamber doors burst open as one of Kale's guards appeared breathless. My king. What happened? The Southern Alpha Lord demands immediate audience rights. Kale's face became lethal. On whose authority? The guard hesitated, then answered carefully. He claims the Royal Luna belongs to the Southern Territories by blood law. Silence filled the room. Then Kale smiled.
Slowly. Terrifyingly.
And Seraphina realized with sudden certainty.
Someone downstairs was about to die.
The throne hall of Black Hollow shook with thunder. Rain lashed against the towering windows while royal guards lined the chamber walls in absolute silence, their hands resting near weapons as tension thickened the air like blood before battle. At the center of the hall stood the Southern delegation. Dozens of warriors. 2 council representatives. And, directly before the throne, Alpha Lord Darius Vane. Tall, broad-shouldered, and draped in crimson ceremonial armor marked with Southern sigils, Darius radiated dominant alpha authority strong enough to unsettle weaker wolves nearby. His wolf was old, violent, battle-hardened, and currently furious. You bring the Royal Luna before us, Darius growled, or the Southern Territories will consider this an unlawful concealment of royal blood. The chamber remained silent. Then footsteps echoed slowly from the upper staircase. Every wolf in the room turned immediately. Kale descended first.
Dark.
Controlled. Terrifyingly calm. And beside him walked Seraphina. The room shifted instantly. Whispers spread through the gathered wolves as moonlight caught the silver markings glowing faintly beneath her skin. She wore dark silver now instead of servant gray, the flowing fabric moving softly around her as though even the moon itself followed her steps. No one looked away, because she no longer looked hidden. She looked royal. Darius stared at her openly. Shock crossed his face first, then calculation, then something far more dangerous. Recognition. The markings, one council elder whispered. Lunareth blood. Another breathed. The atmosphere inside the throne hall changed instantly.
Fear. Greed.
Ambition. Seraphina felt all of it. Her wolf stirred uneasily beneath her skin. Kale noticed immediately. His hand brushed lightly against the small of her back as they descended the final steps toward the throne floor. The touch steadied her instantly.
Mine.
The possessive pulse through the mate bond nearly made her stumble. Darius saw it too, and immediately his expression darkened. So the rumors are true, he said coldly. Kale stopped directly before the throne platform. What rumors? That the Northern King has already claimed the Royal Luna for himself. The room fell silent. Kale's gaze became glacial. I do not answer to Southern speculation. Darius stepped forward anyway. You answer to blood law. Instantly, growls erupted throughout the Northern guards lining the chamber. Kale merely smiled. A terrible expression, because calmness from Kale Draven was always more dangerous than anger. Careful, Kale said softly. Darius ignored the warning. The House of Lunareth historically belonged to Southern Alliance territories before the Blood Wars. Seraphina frowned slightly. What does that mean? Darius turned toward her fully. It means, he said smoothly, your bloodline was originally protected beneath Southern Crown authority, which gives us legal right to oversee your succession. Kale's wolf surged violently. The room temperature dropped immediately. You mistake oversight for ownership. Darius held his ground. And you mistake mating instincts for political authority. That did it. Power exploded from Kale hard enough to crack the marble beneath his feet. Several southern wolves staggered backward instantly. Only Darius remained standing. Barely. Seraphina's pulse quickened as both dominant alphas stared at each other across the chamber like predators seconds from bloodshed. The throne hall itself seemed to tremble beneath the force of their wolves. Darius spoke first. You think this is about desire? Kale said nothing. Darius's gaze flicked toward Seraphina again. She carries royal succession rights powerful enough to alter territorial inheritance. Fear curled sharply through Seraphina's stomach. Inheritance. Succession. They were speaking about her like strategy. Like war. Not a person. Darius continued carefully. If she bonds officially to the Northern Throne, your territories gain direct claim over dormant royal alliances. The realization spread visibly across the chamber. That was why kingdoms were moving so quickly. Not simply because Seraphina existed. Because whoever claimed her, claimed power. Ancient power. Enough to reshape the territories entirely. Kale's expression became unreadable. That changes nothing. Darius laughed once. It changes everything. Then his gaze sharpened directly onto Seraphina. You deserve the truth before this king binds you permanently. Kale moved instantly. The growl that tore from him shook the chamber hard enough to rattle the throne pillars themselves. Every wolf in the room froze. Because for the first time all night, Kale lost control. Choose your next words carefully, he said quietly. Too quietly. Darius's wolf surfaced aggressively beneath his skin. You would deny her knowledge? I would remove your tongue before allowing you to manipulate her. The threat was absolute. Real. Deadly enough that even the Southern Council members paled visibly. But Darius smiled anyway. Then perhaps she should ask herself why the Alpha King arrived at Black Hollow before her awakening fully began. Silence. Seraphina's breath caught. Kale went still.
Too still.
Darius saw it immediately. And realized he'd struck something important. You knew, Darius said slowly. Every instinct inside Seraphina sharpened instantly. She turned toward Kale. What does he mean? Kale's jaw tightened. For the first time since meeting him, hesitation crossed his face. And suddenly Seraphina realized something terrifying. Kale had not come to Black Hollow by accident. He had come looking for her. Silence consumed the throne hall.
Cold. Heavy.
Dangerous. Rain battered the massive windows while thunder rolled across the mountains beyond Black Hollow, but inside the chamber, no one moved. No one even breathed. Because every wolf in the room had heard the accusation. Kale came looking for her. Seraphina Vale stared at the Alpha King beside her, pulse pounding violently beneath her skin. The mate bond twisted painfully. Not from fear. From uncertainty. Kale's silence hurt more than any answer could have. Is it true? She asked quietly. The room watched like predators waiting for blood. Kale's expression remained unreadable. But his wolf was furious. She could feel it raging beneath the surface of him through the bond. Not at her. At Darius. At the room. At himself. Finally, Kale answered. Yes. Shock rippled through the chamber instantly. Seraphina's chest tightened sharply. You knew about me? Kale looked directly at her. Not you. The distinction mattered to him. She could hear it, but it still hurt. The bloodline, he said quietly. I knew rumors survived. Darius folded his arms with grim satisfaction. There it is. Kale ignored him completely. His attention never left Seraphina now. Months ago, Northern scouts intercepted movement between Southern territories and rogue lunar sections. The chamber quieted further. Even the Southern envoys listened carefully. Kale continued. Someone was searching for surviving Lunareth descendants. Seraphina frowned. Why? Because royal Luna blood can awaken ancient territory claims. Darius smirked faintly. And because old prophecies are becoming inconveniently active again. Kale's eyes darkened dangerously. Enough. But Seraphina caught the tension instantly. What prophecies? Neither Alpha answered immediately, which meant the answer mattered. A lot. Thunder cracked violently outside. Kale exhaled slowly, before finally speaking. During the Blood Wars, the last Moon Queen supposedly left behind a prophecy regarding the royal bloodline. Darius added smoothly. When the moon loses balance, the royal Luna will return beside the wolf capable of uniting or destroying the kingdoms. The words settled heavily through the chamber. Seraphina's stomach twisted uneasily. That's impossible. No, Darius said softly. Unfortunately, it isn't. Kale stepped slightly closer beside her. Protective instinct rolled heavily through the bond again. The prophecy means nothing tonight. That's where you're wrong, Darius replied. His gaze sharpened toward Seraphina. Because now every kingdom knows the moon bond chose the northern king. The room shifted uneasily again. Political consequences.
Territorial consequences. Va consequences.
Everything suddenly felt larger than Seraphina could even understand. She looked toward Kale. You came here because you thought I was part of this prophecy? The question clearly angered him.
No.
Then why? Kale held her gaze steadily. Because wolves were already dying searching for you. The truth silenced her instantly. Darius's expression hardened slightly. Kale continued coldly. Southern scouts began disappearing near Black Hollow 6 months ago. Rogue packs moved through northern territory looking for signs of suppressed royal blood. Seraphina felt suddenly sick. This was happening because of me?
No, Kale corrected sharply.
Because of what others want from you. That difference mattered too. But before she could respond, Darius spoke again. And now the crown wants her as well. The throne hall temperature dropped instantly. Kale's eyes became lethal. Darius smiled faintly. There it is. You test my patience.
No, Darius replied calmly.
I test whether the Alpha King plans to rule like a king or mate like a wolf. The insult landed exactly as intended. Several northern warriors growled immediately. Because Darius had questioned Kale's control publicly. Kale slowly descended the final throne steps toward him. Every movement felt predatory. Measured.
Deadly.
You believe claiming her strengthens my throne? Darius met his gaze evenly. I believe every king eventually chooses power. Kale stopped directly before him. Close enough that weaker wolves would have already submitted instinctively. But you misunderstand something. Darius's expression shifted slightly. Kale's voice lowered. She was mine before I knew what she carried. The mate bond slammed violently through Seraphina's chest.
Warm.
Possessive. Absolute. The entire chamber felt it. And suddenly every wolf present realized something terrifying. Kale's obsession with her was real. Not political. Not strategic. Primal. Ancient. Dangerous enough to start wars. Darius noticed too. For the first time all night, uncertainty flickered behind his eyes. Then, a scream echoed somewhere outside the throne hall. Everyone turned instantly. Another scream followed. Then howls. Chaotic.
Panicked.
The massive chamber doors burst open moments later as a bloodied northern guard stumbled inside. My king. Kale turned instantly. What happened? The guard struggled to breathe. The western wall. Fear filled his eyes. They breached the royal perimeter. The room erupted instantly. Weapons unsheathed. Warriors roared. Southern envoys stepped back defensively. Kale's wolf surged violently enough that cracks splintered across the throne floor. Who breached it? The guards swallowed hard. Rogue lunar wolves. Every face in the chamber changed instantly. Even Darius paled slightly. Because rogue lunar wolves served no kingdom.
No crown. No alpha.
They followed only one purpose. Finding the royal bloodline. And now they had found her. Chaos exploded through Black Hollow. War horns sounded across the western walls while wolves roared somewhere beyond the throne hall, their howls colliding violently with thunder rolling across the mountains. The rogue lunar wolves had breached the perimeter, and they were coming for her. Inside the throne chamber, northern guards surged into formation immediately while southern envoys reached for weapons, suspicion and hostility igniting instantly between rival territories. One wrong move and bloodshed would begin inside the hall itself. But none of it mattered to Seraphina Vale, because she was staring at Kale, still hearing his confession echo through the bond. She was mine before I knew what she carried. The truth of it shook her more than the attack outside. All night, fear had whispered the same terrible question inside her mind. What if the Alpha King only wanted the power attached to her bloodline? What if she was nothing more than strategy wrapped in fate?
But now,
Through the mate bond, she knew. The realization hit her with painful clarity. Kale had not chosen her because she was royal. The bond had snapped into place the moment Lucien rejected her beneath the moon. Before Kale knew her name, before the markings appeared, before anyone knew what she truly was, the moon goddess had chosen. Not politics, not kingdoms, not war, her. And somehow that truth terrified her more than lies ever had, because she could feel Kale's sincerity through the bond itself.
raw,
Ancient, absolute. His wolf had recognized her instantly, not as power, not as inheritance.
mate.
The realization tightened painfully around her chest. Outside, another explosion rattled the western side of the estate. The throne hall trembled. Kale turned sharply toward his commanders. "Seal the eastern corridors," he ordered coldly. "No one enters the upper chambers without my direct command." Northern warriors moved immediately.
No hesitation.
No fear, because their king sounded exactly like the man who conquered kingdoms before 25. Lethal, controlled, merciless. Darius stepped forward again. "If rogue lunar wolves breached your perimeter this easily, then she is not safe here." Kale slowly looked at him, and suddenly the chamber felt colder. "Careful." Darius ignored the warning. The southern territories have fortified sanctuaries designed specifically for royal bloodlines. Kale's wolf surged instantly. The growl that escaped him made several wolves physically recoil. "You think I would hand her to another kingdom? You cannot protect her alone forever. Watch me." The words landed like violence. Seraphina felt the truth of them instantly through the bond. Kale meant every syllable.
Completely.
No hesitation existed inside him where she was concerned. No political calculation. Only instinct. Protect her. Keep her. Destroy anything threatening her. The realization made her pulse race. Because no one had ever fought for her before. Not truly. Not without wanting something in return. But the mate bond revealed everything Kale could not hide. And beneath all the dominance and possessiveness, she felt something startling. Relief. His wolf had been searching for something without understanding what it needed. Until her. The connection between them tightened painfully again. Kale glanced toward her instantly. His entire focus sharpened. "You're overwhelmed." It wasn't a question. Seraphina swallowed hard. "There's too much happening." Kale crossed the chamber toward her immediately despite the ongoing chaos around them. The moment he stopped in front of her, the pressure inside her chest eased slightly. The bond calming instinctively.
Mine.
The possessive pulse brushed warmly against her consciousness again. Kale lowered his voice. "Look at me."
She did.
And immediately the noise around them faded. That was the terrifying thing about him. When Kale focused on her fully, the rest of the world seemed smaller somehow. Less dangerous. Even now, surrounded by threats and wolves preparing for battle, his attention remained entirely on her. "You feel the bond," he said quietly.
Not shame.
Not accusation. Just truth. Seraphina nodded slowly. "Yes." Kale's jaw tightened subtly. "As do I." The sincerity in his voice nearly broke her, because she could feel it. Every word, every emotion. The mate bond carried no deception between wolves this deeply connected, and Kale's feelings were devastatingly real. "You truly didn't know," she whispered. Kale held her gaze steadily. "I knew there was a possibility the bloodline survived." His hand brushed lightly against the glowing markings along her wrist. "But I did not come for a throne." The touch sent warmth racing through her body. "I came because my wolf heard yours." Her breath caught. The confession settled directly into her soul. Ancient.
Sacred. Real.
Kale's expression darkened slightly. "The moment Lucien rejected you, the bond awakened." Seraphina remembered it instantly. The pain. The breaking chains. The overwhelming presence of him across the hall. Kale continued quietly. "My wolf recognized you before I reached the throne floor." The bond pulsed harder, as if confirming every word. Not strategy. Not politics.
Fate.
Darius watched the exchange carefully from across the chamber. then finally spoke with visible frustration. "You're both blind." Kale did not even look at him.
No.
"You simply cannot understand what the moon already decided." That silenced the southern alpha momentarily, because even rival territories respected ancient mating law, especially bonds strong enough to trigger awakening phenomena. Another roar thundered outside the estate.
Closer this time.
Screams followed. Then came a howl unlike any Seraphina had ever heard before. Ancient.
Broken. Hungry.
Every wolf inside the throne hall froze instantly. Even Kale went still. Fear brushed sharply through the mate bond for the first time. Not fear for himself. For her. What was that? Seraphina whispered. Kale's expression became unreadable. Then one of the elder wolves near the throne slowly paled.
No.
The old wolf's voice trembled. "It cannot be." Kale turned sharply toward him.
What?
The elder swallowed hard, then answered the words no one in the room wanted to hear. The rogue lunar wolves didn't come alone. Thunder crashed violently overhead, and somewhere beyond the walls of Black Hollow, something monstrous answered. The howl came again, closer. So powerful the stained-glass windows of Black Hollow trembled violently within their frames. Outside the throne hall, wolves screamed. Steel clashed. Something massive slammed against the western walls hard enough to shake the mountain beneath the estate itself. Panic spread instantly through the chamber. Southern envoys barked orders. Northern warriors shifted partially beneath the pressure of approaching danger. Even dominant wolves looked unsettled now. Because whatever waited beyond those walls did not feel natural. It felt ancient.
Hungry.
And it wanted her. At the center of the throne hall, Seraphina Vale felt terror claw violently through her chest. The bond. The prophecy. The rogue lunar wolves. The kingdoms. Everything crashed together too fast. Her breathing became uneven.
No.
Another crash thundered outside. Closer again. The floor beneath her feet trembled. And suddenly Seraphina could feel them. The wolves beyond the walls.
Searching. Hunting.
Their hunger scraped violently against her awakened bloodline like claws against exposed flesh.
Her panic surged.
The silver markings beneath her skin flared uncontrollably. "I can feel them," she whispered shakily. The room around her blurred. Too loud. Too much. Her wolf reacted instinctively to the threat surrounding them. Run.
Hide. Fight.
The conflicting instincts tore through her violently enough that she stumbled backward. Kale caught her instantly. Strong hands closed around her waist before she could fall. And through the mate bond, he felt everything. Her fear. Her panic. The terror threatening to swallow her whole. Kale's expression darkened immediately. Not with frustration. With fury. Because something had frightened his mate. "Look at me," he ordered softly. But Seraphina barely heard him. Another monstrous roar shook the estate. Her pulse spiraled harder. "They're coming," she whispered. "They're coming for me." Kale moved suddenly. One hand lifted firmly against her jaw. And, before panic could consume her completely, he kissed her. The world stopped. Everything disappeared. The throne hall. The shouting. The wolves. The war.
Gone.
Only Kale remained. The kiss was not soft. It was consuming. Possessive. Protective. Like the Alpha King himself. Power surged violently through the mate bond the moment his mouth touched hers. Ancient warmth exploded through Seraphina's body, drowning the panic beneath something far stronger. Him.
Mine.
The possessive pulse from Kale's wolf wrapped around her completely. Not controlling. Shielding. Her fingers instinctively gripped the front of his cloak as the bond deepened sharply between them. And for the first time since the chaos began, she felt safe. Not because the danger vanished. Because Kale would burn the world before letting it touch her. The realization hit with devastating clarity. He meant every promise. Every possessive growl. Every vow. Not politics. Not strategy. Not because she was royal. Because the moon goddess chose her for him. And Kale would destroy anything threatening what belonged to him. The kiss deepened briefly, enough to steal every remaining breath from her lungs before Kale finally pulled away. But not far. Never far. His forehead rested lightly against hers as both of them breathed unevenly. The entire throne hall had fallen silent. Every wolf present stared openly in shock, because mate-bonded wolves radiated power through physical contact. And the force released between Kale and Seraphina moments ago had nearly overwhelmed the chamber. The silver markings beneath her skin glowed brighter now. Stable.
Calm.
No longer chaotic. Kale's thumb brushed once softly beneath her jaw. Better? The roughness in his voice sent heat through her chest. Seraphina could only nod weakly. Kale's eyes darkened with visible satisfaction. Good. The possessive approval brushed through the bond hard enough to make her pulse race again. Then, suddenly, a roar exploded directly outside the throne hall doors. Not distant this time. Here. The massive entrance doors shook violently. Several guards were thrown backward as something enormous slammed against the other side hard enough to splinter reinforced wood. Chaos erupted instantly. Protect the Luna. Northern wolves surged forward, while southern warriors drew blades. Kale turned instantly, placing himself fully between Seraphina and the doors without hesitation.
Pure instinct.
The throne hall trembled again. Another impact. Cracks splintered across the massive entrance. Then came the growl.
Low.
Monstrous. Ancient enough to make every wolf in the chamber freeze. Even Kale went still. Because this was not merely a rogue wolf outside. This was something far older. Far worse. One final impact shattered the throne hall doors inward. Wood exploded across the chamber. Smoke and rain flooded inside. And standing within the destruction was a creature out of nightmare. Massive black fur. Silver scars burned across its body like ancient lunar markings twisted into corruption. Its eyes glowed blood-red beneath the stormlight. And when it looked directly at Seraphina, the creature smiled. Every wolf in the room recoiled instantly. Because wolves did not smile. But this one did. And somewhere deep inside Seraphina's awakened bloodline, something ancient recognized it. The creature stepped through the shattered throne hall doors like death given flesh. Rain poured across its massive black fur while silver scars pulsed violently along its body, glowing beneath the stormlight like corrupted lunar markings burned directly into bone and skin. Every wolf in the chamber recoiled instinctively, not because it was stronger, because it felt wrong, ancient, twisted, as though something sacred had been broken inside it long ago. The beast's glowing red eyes locked directly onto Seraphina Vale, and smiled. The sight froze the room in terror. But Seraphina's fear vanished instantly beneath something far stranger. Recognition. Deep within her awakened bloodline, something ancient recognized it. Not enemy. Not stranger. Memory. Her wolf surged violently beneath her skin. The force of it nearly knocked the breath from her lungs. Kale felt it instantly through the mate bond. His head snapped toward her. Seraphina. But she could barely hear him. The throne hall faded beneath the sudden flood of ancient instinct crashing through her consciousness. Images exploded behind her eyes. Silver temples burning beneath blood-red moons. Royal wolves screaming as shadows consumed them. A monstrous black wolf kneeling before a crowned Luna. Then chains.
Corruption. Va.
The creature standing before them was not merely rogue. It had once belonged to the royal line. No, she whispered weakly. The beast tilted its massive head, as though hearing her thoughts. Then came the voice, not spoken aloud. Inside her mind. Moon air. The entire chamber trembled violently. Several wolves collapsed instantly beneath the pressure suddenly pouring from Seraphina's bloodline. Kale moved directly in front of her immediately. Protective instinct exploded through the mate bond.
Mean it.
The possessive force behind it nearly shook the chamber itself. The black wolf growled low. Not threatened. Interested. Ancient red eyes shifted toward Kale slowly.
King.
Kale's expression darkened lethally. You speak. The beast's jaws pulled wider into something resembling amusement. Once we all did. A chill swept through the throne hall, because wolves did not communicate this way anymore. Only the oldest bloodlines once possessed mind speech strong enough to transcend forms. And this creature carried something older than modern kingdoms. Darius stepped backward, visibly unsettled. What is that thing? Elder Rowan looked moments from collapse. An eclipse wolf, he whispered. The chamber fell silent again. Even Kale's warriors stiffened, because every wolf knew the stories. During the Blood Wars, certain royal guardians had been corrupted beneath forbidden lunar rituals meant to create immortal protectors for the moon crown. Instead, the rituals destroyed them, turned them into creatures bound neither to life nor death. Most believed the eclipse wolves had vanished centuries ago. But one now stood inside Black Hollow, and it had come for Seraphina. The beast's gaze returned to her fully. At last, the royal blood awakens again. The silver markings beneath Seraphina's skin erupted violently. Pain tore through her body as her wolf surged harder than ever before. Not fighting. Calling. Awaken. The command thundered through her soul. Kale caught her instantly, as her knees nearly gave out.
Easy.
But the bond between them was changing, deepening, expanding. Seraphina gasped sharply as silver power exploded outward from her body in violent waves. The throne hall shook. Windows shattered. Moonlight burst across the chamber like liquid silver fire. And suddenly, Kale's wolf answered. The Alpha King's power surged instinctively toward hers. Black and silver energy collided violently between them. Not opposing. Joining. The mate bond ignited completely. Every wolf in the room dropped instantly to their knees. Because what poured from Kale and Seraphina no longer felt like ordinary mating power. It felt royal. Ancient. The joining of King and Luna. Kale grabbed her waist tightly as the force threatened to consume them both. Look at me. Seraphina did. And the moment their eyes locked, their wolves merged. Not physically. Something deeper. Primal. The world exploded in silver light. Kale's power wrapped around hers seamlessly, while Seraphina's awakened bloodline flooded directly into the Alpha King through the bond. Strength. Instinct. Moonfire. The connection between them became absolute. And for one terrifying moment, every wolf in the chamber felt them.
King. Queen.
The ancient hierarchy slammed instinctively through the room hard enough to force dominant alphas to bow their heads. Even Darius lowered his eyes. Because the moon goddess herself had just acknowledged the bond. The eclipse wolf stepped backward slowly. Not fearful, respectful. The red glow within its eyes dimmed slightly. Yes, the creature's voice echoed inside Seraphina's mind once more. The moon throne remembers you. Then suddenly, another howl echoed beyond the throne hall walls.
Not one.
Dozens. The eclipse wolf turned sharply toward the storm outside. Its expression darkened. They found you sooner than expected. Kale's arms tightened protectively around Seraphina instantly. Who? The eclipse wolf looked toward the shattered doors. And for the first time since arriving, fear entered the creature's ancient eyes. The hollow crown comes. Thunder exploded overhead. Then the entire western side of Black Hollow detonated inward. The western side of Black Hollow exploded inward in fire and stone. The force of the blast shook the entire mountain fortress hard enough to throw wolves across the throne hall floor. Pillars cracked. Glass rained from shattered windows. Smoke and moonlit ash flooded violently into the chamber. Screams echoed everywhere. And beneath it all, something laughed. Not loudly. Not human. Ancient amusement rolled through the destruction like a whisper from the grave itself. At the center of the collapsing throne hall, Alpha Kale Draven pulled Seraphina Veil tightly against him as debris crashed around them. His wolf had fully surfaced now. Dominant power rolled from him in suffocating waves while black energy twisted violently around his body like living shadow.
Mine.
The possessive growl thundered through the mate bond.
Protect. Kill. Destroy.
Every instinct inside Kale had narrowed to a single purpose. Nothing touches her. The silver power joining him to Seraphina pulsed brighter as their bond stabilized completely. Not merely mates now. Something deeper. Older. King and Luna. The realization shook every wolf in the chamber. Because the moon goddess had not simply bonded them. She had crowned them. A massive section of the western wall collapsed inward completely. Then the figures stepped through the smoke. Silence swallowed the throne hall instantly. Even the eclipse wolf lowered its head. The creature entering Black Hollow wore no crown. It did not need one. Power bent around him unnaturally, twisting shadows across the ruined chamber floor like living things crawling toward their master.
Tall.
Ancient, draped in black armor marked with silver lunar fractures. And his eyes, moonless black, empty of humanity. The moment Seraphina saw him, pain exploded through her bloodline. Memories surged violently behind her eyes. A throne drowned in blood. Silver wolves burning alive. A king kneeling beside darkness itself. Her knees nearly buckled. Kale tightened his hold instantly.
Easy.
But the figure only smiled faintly. She remembers. The voice scraped through the chamber like broken steel. Every wolf present recoiled instinctively. Not from volume. From age. This creature felt older than the kingdoms themselves. Elder Rowan visibly trembled. The hollow crown, he whispered. Fear spread instantly through the surviving wolves. Because every ancient story ended with the same warning. Never speak the name of the fallen Moon King. Yet now he stood before them.
Alive.
Or something worse than alive. The hollow crown's gaze settled fully onto Seraphina. And for the first time since her awakening, she understood true fear. Not because he wanted to kill her. Because he looked at her like something he had lost. At last, he said softly. Kale stepped directly in front of her instantly. Predatory rage exploded through the mate bond. You will not look at her again. The hollow crown's smile widened slightly. And yet the moon chose her exactly, as I knew it would. Kale's wolf surged violently enough to shake the ruined throne hall. You speak too freely for something already dead. The hollow crown tilted his head.
Dead.
The shadows around him writhed unnaturally. No, King of the North. His dark gaze flicked briefly toward the silver power joining Kale and Seraphina. I simply survived longer than the moon intended. The eclipse wolf moved slowly beside him now. Not servant.
Guardian.
The realization sent unease through Seraphina's bloodline. This creature was ancient royal protection corrupted into nightmare. And it obeyed him. Darius stepped backward, visibly pale. You said the hollow crown was myth. Elder Rowan's face hollowed with dread. We prayed he was. The hollow crown ignored them all. His attention remained fixed entirely on Seraphina. You carry her eyes. Pain twisted sharply through Seraphina's chest. Who are you? The chamber fell silent. The hollow crown looked almost amused. Then finally answered. I was the last Moon King. Shock detonated through the throne hall. Even Kale stiffened slightly. Because Moon Kings belong to legend. The original rulers before the Blood Wars destroyed the royal line centuries ago.
Impossible. Dead. Gone.
And yet the creature standing before them carried enough ancient lunar authority to make dominant wolves tremble. Seraphina's wolf stirred uneasily beneath her skin. Recognition again. Not personal. Bloodline memory. The hollow crown watched her carefully. You feel it. She hated that he was right. Kale's voice lowered dangerously. Explain yourself. The hollow crown finally looked toward him. And something cold entered his expression. You stand where kings once knelt. The shadows darkened violently around him. You bond with power you barely understand. Kale did not move. I understand enough. No, the hollow crown whispered. You understand desire. The throne hall temperature dropped sharply. But not what she truly is. Silver power surged instinctively through Seraphina. The bond between her and Kale flared protectively. The hollow crown smiled again. There. His black eyes gleamed unnaturally. The throne awakens. Then suddenly, every torch in the ruined hall extinguished at once. Darkness swallowed Black Hollow. And somewhere beneath the mountain fortress, something ancient answered the hollow crown's call. Darkness swallowed Black Hollow. Not ordinary darkness. Living darkness. It poured upward from beneath the mountain fortress, like black smoke breathing through ancient cracks in the earth itself. The ruined throne hall trembled violently as something deep below awakened with a roar powerful enough to shake the entire kingdom. Stones split apart across the floor. Ancient symbols ignited beneath the fractured marble in lines of glowing silver. Runes. Old. Royal. Forbidden. Every wolf in the chamber staggered as lunar power flooded the air. And standing at the center of it all, Seraphina Vale felt the mountain recognize her. The sensation nearly stopped her heart. The power beneath Black Hollow was alive, waiting, watching, remembering. Kale tightened his arm around her waist instantly as the mate bond flared violently again. You feel it. It wasn't a question. Seraphina nodded shakily. Yes. The words barely escaped her lips. Because the deeper power beneath the fortress was calling directly to her bloodline.
Mine.
The ancient whisper echoed through her soul. The hollow crown watched her reaction carefully from across the ruined hall. And smiled. The throne remembers its queen. Kale's wolf exploded with rage. Silver-black power surged around him hard enough to crack the remaining pillars nearby. She is not yours. The hollow crown tilted his head slowly.
No.
His black eyes gleamed unnaturally. She never was. The answer unsettled even Kale. Seraphina felt it instantly through the bond. Not fear. Calculation. Because the hollow crown was not speaking like a conqueror claiming ownership. He spoke like someone witnessing destiny unfold exactly as expected. The realization sent unease through Seraphina's chest. What are you talking about? She demanded. The hollow crown stepped forward slowly through the smoke and ruin. Every shadow in the throne hall moved with him. The blood wars were never about kingdoms. The ancient darkness beneath the mountain pulsed again. Violently. The glowing runes spread wider across the chamber floor. Several elders collapsed outright. The hollow crown's gaze never left Seraphina. They were about the throne beneath this mountain. Silence. Then Elder Rowan went pale.
No.
The old wolf staggered backward in horror. The moon throne is real? The hollow crown smiled faintly. You buried it well. Kale's eyes narrowed sharply. What throne? The ancient king finally looked toward him. The first throne. The chamber trembled again. Silver fire burst suddenly from the ancient runes beneath Seraphina's feet. And instantly, her bloodline answered. Power surged violently through her body. Not chaotic this time. Controlled. Ancient instinct flooded her consciousness as memory not her own exploded behind her eyes. A hidden kingdom beneath the mountains. Silver wolves kneeling before a glowing throne carved from moonstone. A crowned queen standing beside a dark king. Then betrayal.
Blood.
Shadows consuming everything. Seraphina gasped sharply as the vision shattered. Kale steadied her immediately.
Easy.
But his voice sounded distant now, because the throne beneath the mountain was calling louder. Awaken. The command thundered through her bloodline. The hollow crown watched her carefully. You hear it. Seraphina looked toward him slowly. What is beneath this mountain? The ancient king's expression darkened. The heart of the old lunar kingdom. Every wolf in the room froze. Even Darius looked shaken now, because the ancient lunar kingdom was considered myth older than recorded pack history. A civilization lost before modern territories ever existed. But Seraphina felt the truth. The mountain itself pulsed beneath her feet.
Alive.
Waiting. The hollow crown continued quietly. The moon throne only awakens for the true royal bloodline. Kale's hold on Seraphina tightened protectively. And what happens if it awakens? For the first time, something dangerous entered the hollow crown's expression. The world changes. Outside, war still raged beyond the broken walls of Black Hollow. But inside the throne hall, something far older than war had begun moving again. The eclipse wolf suddenly growled low beside the hollow crown. Warning! Every instinct inside Kale sharpened instantly. What is it? The hollow crown slowly turned toward the shattered western corridor, and for the first time since arriving, his expression lost its calmness. They're already here. A deafening scream echoed somewhere deep beneath the fortress. Not human. Not wolf. Something ancient waking in pain. The runes across the floor exploded brighter. Then the mountain beneath Black Hollow opened. The mountain split open beneath Black Hollow. Stone screamed. Ancient runes blazed silver across the ruined throne hall floor as a massive fracture tore through the center of the chamber, descending into endless darkness below. Wolves stumbled backward in terror. Some shifted uncontrollably beneath the pressure flooding upward from the abyss. Others dropped to their knees entirely, because the power rising from beneath the mountain no longer felt like magic. It felt divine. At the center of the destruction, Seraphina Vale could barely breathe. The ancient force beneath the fortress was calling directly to her bloodline now. Not whispering, demanding.
Come home.
The command thundered through her soul hard enough to make the silver markings across her skin ignite brighter. Kale tightened his hold around her instantly. The mate bond surged violently between them as his wolf reacted to the threat rising beneath the mountain. Protect her.
Keep her close.
Destroy anything that touches her. The possessive instinct rolled through him so fiercely that dark energy cracked across the ruined floor around his boots. But even Kale could feel it. The throne below was not hostile toward Seraphina. It was awakening for her. The hollow crown stood at the edge of the fracture, shadows swirling around him like living smoke. And for the first time since arriving, he knelt. The sight stunned the chamber into silence. Because kings did not kneel. Yet the ancient Moon King lowered his head toward the darkness beneath the mountain. Toward the throne. Toward her. The heir returns, he said softly. The words shook something deep inside Seraphina's bloodline. Another violent pulse exploded upward from the abyss. Silver light erupted through the fracture like moonfire.
And suddenly,
she heard voices.
Hundreds of them.
Ancient wolves whispering through the throne itself.
Luna, Queen.
Blood of the moon. The force of it nearly overwhelmed her. Kale felt her sway instantly. Seraphina. But her eyes were locked on the abyss now. Drawn toward it. Something waited below. Not merely power. Memory.
Truth.
The mountain remembered everything. Darius stared at the fracture in visible horror. This is impossible. Elder Rowan shook his head weakly. No, this is history. The old wolf's eyes filled with tears as silver symbols spread wider across the chamber walls. The moon throne truly survived. Kale's expression darkened. What exactly is the moon throne? The hollow crown rose slowly from his kneel. The first seat of lunar rule. His black eyes shifted toward Seraphina again. Before kingdoms fractured. Before packs became territories. Before wolves forgot what they were. Another scream echoed from deep below the mountain. Ancient. Tormented. Kale immediately stepped further in front of Seraphina. Every instinct inside him sharpened lethally. What is down there? The hollow crown's expression became unreadable. The cost of immortality. A chill swept through the ruined hall. Then, suddenly, massive claws slammed against the inner walls of the abyss below. The entire chamber shook violently. Wolves roared in panic. Something enormous was climbing upward from beneath the mountain. Kale's wolf surfaced instantly. Black power exploded around him as his eyes flashed silver. Every northern warrior immediately formed defensive lines around Seraphina. But she barely noticed, because the throne was pulling harder now. The mate bond strained painfully as ancient lunar power surged toward her in relentless waves. Kale grabbed her arm firmly. Stay with me. The command cut through the chaos instantly. Seraphina looked at him, and the bond between them steadied again. His presence grounded her. Always him. Even now, with the mountains splitting apart and ancient horrors awakening beneath them, Kale remained the one thing anchoring her to herself. The realization hit harder than fear, because somewhere between rejection and war, she had begun trusting him completely. The hollow crown noticed it too. His expression darkened slightly. The throne accepts both of you. Kale's gaze snapped toward him sharply. What does that mean? The ancient king looked almost amused. The moon throne never awakens for a Luna alone. Silence. Then Seraphina understood first. King and queen. The throne had recognized the mate bond. Not merely emotionally, sacredly. Ancient lunar power had accepted Kale beside her. The hollow crown's voice lowered. The first rulers were never separate. The silver energy around Seraphina surged violently again. And suddenly Kale felt it too, the throne calling through the bond. Claim your place. The command echoed through both of them simultaneously. Kale's jaw tightened instantly.
No.
The refusal shocked everyone. Even Seraphina turned toward him. Kale's eyes never left the abyss below. I do not trust anything buried beneath mountains for centuries. The hollow crown laughed quietly. A wise king. Then the mountain roared. Something massive burst upward from the abyss in an explosion of black claws and silver fire. And Black Hollow descended fully into war. The creature exploded from the abyss, like a nightmare born beneath the earth. Black claws the size of swords slammed into the fractured throne hall floor, while silver fire erupted around its massive body. Ancient chains dragged behind it, shattered and burning with corrupted lunar runes. The roar that followed nearly collapsed what remained of Black Hollow. Wolves screamed. Warriors scattered. Even dominant alphas staggered beneath the sheer force pouring from the beast. It was enormous. Far larger than any wolf should have been. Its body looked twisted together from shadow, bone, and ancient lunar magic corrupted beyond recognition. Red eyes blazed through smoke as its jaws opened wide enough to swallow a man whole. And when it looked at Seraphina Vale, it bowed. The sight froze the ruined throne hall into stunned silence. The hollow crown's expression darkened immediately. No, he whispered. For the first time since appearing, the ancient king looked genuinely alarmed. Kale noticed instantly. What is it? The hollow crown's black eyes remained fixed on the beast climbing from the abyss. That is not supposed to awaken. The creature's red gaze never left Seraphina. Moon air. The words echoed directly inside her mind. And suddenly the throne beneath the mountain pulsed violently again. Ancient power slammed upward through Seraphina's bloodline so hard she cried out. The silver markings across her body ignited. The mate bond exploded with unbearable force. Too much. Too fast. Seraphina gasped sharply as visions tore through her consciousness. Ancient queens crowned in moonfire. Kings kneeling beneath silver thrones. The blood wars.
Death. Fire.
Darkness swallowing entire kingdoms. Then Kale. Always Kale. Her knees nearly gave out. The throne was trying to pull her deeper. Claim her fully. Kale caught her instantly. Seraphina. But her breathing had become uneven again. The bond was spiraling. The throne. The bloodline. The ancient power beneath the mountain. Everything was crashing into her wolf at once. And Kale felt every second of it through the mate bond.
Fear. Pain.
Overload. His expression hardened immediately. Look at me. But Seraphina barely heard him. Silver energy whipped violently around her body now, lifting debris from the shattered throne hall floor as the moon throne called harder. Come claim your crown. The ancient command thundered through her soul. Kale's wolf surged instantly in response. Protect her. Anchor her. Keep her here. Without hesitation, Kale pulled her fully against him and kissed her again. The world stopped. The chaos vanished beneath the force of the bond. Silver power collided with dark alpha energy between them, stabilizing instantly as Kale poured himself directly into the connection, grounding her, holding her together. The kiss was deeper this time, not merely protective, intimate, possessive, ancient. Kale's hand tightened against the back of her neck, while the other wrapped firmly around her waist, keeping her anchored against him as the throne's power raged around them.
Mine.
The growl rolled through the bond with devastating force. Not the thrones. Not destinies.
Mine.
And suddenly, the chaos inside Seraphina quieted. The vision slowed. The overwhelming pull of the throne weakened beneath the warmth of Kale's presence, surrounding her completely. The realization hit with startling clarity. The throne could call to her bloodline, but Kale called to her soul. When he finally pulled back, both of them were breathing hard. The silver power surrounding Seraphina had steadied completely.
Controlled now.
Balanced. The ruined throne hall stared openly in shock. Because what just happened should have been impossible. An ancient lunar awakening should have consumed her entirely. Yet Kale had stabilized it through the mate bond alone. The hollow crown watched them carefully, and slowly smiled. There it is. Kale's eyes snapped toward him sharply. What? The ancient king's expression darkened strangely. The true throne bond. A chill swept through the chamber. The hollow crown stepped closer to the abyss slowly. In the old kingdom, the moon throne was never ruled by power alone. His gaze shifted meaningfully between Kale and Seraphina. It required balance. Seraphina's pulse quickened. The hollow crown continued. The Luna carried the throne's voice. Then his black eyes settled fully on Kale, and the king carried her back from it. Silence. Even Elder Rowan looked shaken. Because this was older than pack law, older than mating traditions. This was the original lunar bond. Kale's jaw tightened. You speak as though this was planned. The hollow crown looked almost sad. It was. The beast emerging from the abyss roared again. This time the entire mountain answered. Massive cracks spread across the fortress walls. Ancient runes ignited beyond the throne hall, spreading through Black Hollow itself like silver veins awakening beneath stone. The creature stepped fully from the abyss now, and every wolf in the room felt the truth immediately. This was not merely a guardian. It was a prison, or what remained after something inside it had broken free. The hollow crown's voice lowered. The throne is opening. Fear curled sharply through Seraphina's chest. What happens if it fully awakens? The ancient king looked directly at her, then answered with terrifying calmness. The old gods return. The mountain would not stop shaking. Ancient power surged through Black Hollow in violent waves as silver runes ignited across walls, floors, and shattered pillars. Beyond the ruined throne hall, wolves howled in terror, while the storm above the kingdom darkened unnaturally, turning the moon blood-red behind fractured clouds. But at the center of the chaos, Kale Draven and Seraphina Vale stood locked together beneath the force of the bond. And something inside them was changing. The silver power wrapping around Seraphina no longer felt unstable. It moved with purpose now, with intelligence. Ancient lunar energy curled through the mate bond directly into Kale, while his dark alpha power surged back into her in perfect balance. Not consuming, strengthening. The hollow crown watched carefully from across the fractured abyss. His expression had become unreadable.
Impossible, Darius whispered.
Because every wolf in the chamber could feel it. The mate bond between them was evolving. Ancient. Royal. Something older than modern wolves entirely. Seraphina gasped softly as another pulse surged through her bloodline. This time the visions did not overwhelm her. They opened.
Clear now.
She saw towering silver temples beneath endless moonlight. Massive wolf guardians lining marble halls. A throne carved from glowing moonstone deep beneath the mountains. And, beside it,
Kale.
Not Kale exactly, but someone carrying the same soul. The same eyes, the same power. A king dressed in ancient black armor standing beside a crowned Luna whose silver markings matched Seraphina's exactly. The vision struck so hard, she nearly staggered. Kale caught her immediately. And suddenly,
he saw it too.
The connection between them flared violently as the vision passed directly through the mate bond into him. The ancient throne room. The Silver Kingdom. The crowned queen reaching for him beneath moonlight. Kale inhaled sharply. Because he recognized her. Not from this life. From before. What did you see? Seraphina whispered. Kale stared at her in stunned silence for a long moment, then answered carefully. You. The bond tightened instantly. Warmth spread painfully through Seraphina's chest. Not because of the answer, because she knew he spoke the truth. Every emotion moved openly between them now. The deeper the bond strengthened, the harder it became to hide from each other. And Kale was no longer merely feeling protectiveness. She felt awe, possession, need, but beneath all of it, recognition, as though some ancient part of him had finally found what it had been searching for across lifetimes. The realization stole her breath. Kale lifted one hand slowly against her cheek. His touch felt different now, stronger. The moment his skin touched hers, silver light pulsed between them. The entire ruined throne hall reacted. Ancient runes across the chamber brightened instantly. The moon throne beneath the mountain answered their bond. The hollow crown lowered his eyes briefly. The throne remembers its rulers. Kale's gaze sharpened immediately. Explain. But before the hollow crown could answer, Seraphina cried out softly again. Another memory surged through the bond. This time both of them saw it. A battlefield drowned in silver fire. Ancient wolves fighting shadow-covered beasts beneath a shattered moon. The crowned Luna screaming as darkness consumed the mountain kingdom. And the king, Kale's ancient counterpart, locking the throne away beneath blood and sacrifice. The vision shattered violently. Seraphina nearly collapsed from the force of it. Kale pulled her fully against his chest immediately.
Easy.
The command grounded her instantly. But now he understood too. The throne beneath the mountain had not been buried accidentally. It had been sealed. Something terrible had once escaped from it. And now it was awakening again. Kale looked toward the hollow crown slowly. You failed to stop it. The accusation landed heavily. For the first time, pain crossed the ancient king's face. Yes. Silence followed. Then the hollow crown's black eyes shifted toward Seraphina. The Luna died, sealing the throne. A chill swept through the ruined chamber. And the king survived long enough to become this. The darkness surrounding him pulsed violently. The eclipse wolf lowered its head beside him quietly. Seraphina's chest tightened painfully. The ancient memories becoming clearer now made one thing horrifyingly obvious. This had happened before. The moon throne had awakened once already. And the world nearly ended because of it. Kale's arms tightened instinctively around her. His wolf reacted violently to the fear rising inside her.
Meaning.
Protect her.
Keep her safe.
The possessive pulse rolled through the bond harder than ever before. But this time, Seraphina answered instinctively, not in words, in feeling, trust. The realization stunned both of them. Kale went still, because she had given it freely, not fear, not obligation.
Trust.
The bond exploded with warmth. Silver and black power surged around them together in a spiraling storm that shook the entire throne hall. The ancient runes responded instantly, and somewhere deep beneath the mountain, the moon throne awakened further. The hollow crown watched the surge carefully, then finally spoke the words neither of them wanted to hear. The stronger your bond becomes. His dark gaze lifted toward the abyss. The faster the throne opens. The abyss beneath Black Hollow would not stop opening. Ancient stone groaned as the fracture widened across the ruined throne hall floor, revealing an impossible kingdom hidden beneath the mountain. Far below, silver towers glowed through darkness like buried stars while moonfire rivers carved through ancient ruins untouched for centuries. The lost lunar kingdom still existed.
And it was waking.
Every wolf in the chamber felt it now. The power rising from below no longer pulsed randomly. It moved with purpose.
Toward them.
Towards Seraphina Vale.
Toward the bond.
Kale stood firmly beside her at the edge of the abyss, one arm wrapped protectively around her waist, while silver and black power spiraled around them together like living threads woven by the moon itself. The deeper their bond grew, the stronger the throne awakened. And now everyone understood the terrifying truth. The throne was not merely reacting to Seraphina's bloodline. It was responding to both of them. King and Luna, ancient rulers reborn. The hollow crown watched them silently from across the shattered chamber. His expression had become distant, almost haunted. "You should leave," Elder Rowan whispered shakily. No one answered him. Because even now, something deeper beneath the mountain continued calling through the bond. Not in words, in memory. Serafina could feel it pressing against her consciousness.
Come below.
Kale felt it too. The realization unsettled him more than he admitted aloud. The throne recognized him. Ancient runes carved along the widening fracture glowed brighter every time he touched Serafina, as though the mountain itself acknowledged their bond as legitimate. The hollow crown finally spoke again. The path is opening. Darius looked toward the abyss uneasily. What path? The ancient king lifted one hand slowly toward the glowing kingdom beneath them. The path to the moon throne. Silence followed. Then Kale's voice lowered dangerously. And what waits at the end of that path? The hollow crown's black eyes darkened. Truth. Serafina swallowed hard. Every instinct inside her told her not to trust him. Yet the bloodline memories growing clearer through the bond whispered something else entirely. He was not lying. Kale felt her conflict immediately. His thumb brushed slowly against the inside of her wrist, grounding her again. The small touch steadied the bond instantly.
Mine.
The possessive warmth wrapped around her gently, now rather than violently. The deeper their connection became, the more instinctive it felt between them. Natural. As though their wolves had known each other long before either of them were born. Another pulse surged through the abyss below. This time both of them saw it clearly. A vision exploded between them through the bond. Ancient moonlit corridors beneath the mountain. Silver guardians kneeling. A crowned queen reaching toward a throne carved from living moonstone. Then Kale. Or the ancient king tied to his soul. Placing his hand against hers before the throne itself. Not domination. Balance. The vision vanished. Serafina gasped softly. Kale went completely still beside her. Because this time he remembered more. Not just images. Emotion. Devotion.
Loss.
The overwhelming terror of watching the woman beside him die sealing away the throne. Pain flashed visibly across his face before he hit it again. But Serafina felt everything through the bond. Every memory. Every emotion. And suddenly she understood something devastating. Their souls had belonged to each other long before this life. The realization tightened painfully around her chest. Kale looked toward her slowly. Neither of them spoke.
They didn't need to.
The bond carried the truth openly now. The hollow crown watched the exchange carefully, then finally said, "The throne restores what was broken." The eclipse wolf growled low beside him.
Warning.
The ancient king's expression darkened immediately. They're running out of time. Kale's gaze sharpened.
Who?
The hollow crown pointed toward the kingdom below. And only then did they all notice it. Movement. Thousands of glowing silver lights moving through the buried city beneath the mountain. Not fire.
Eyes.
The chamber fell silent. Because something was waking inside the lost kingdom. Something waiting beneath the throne for centuries. Serafina's wolf stirred violently beneath her skin. Not fear. Recognition. The silver lights began moving faster now. Toward the staircase forming slowly, within the abyss itself. Ancient black stone rose upward from darkness, building a descending path deeper beneath the mountain. The path to the throne. The hollow crown's voice lowered. The guardians have awakened. Darius stepped backward immediately. Guardians? But Elder Rowan looked moments from collapse. The moon sentinels. Every older wolf in the chamber visibly paled. Because the moon sentinels belonged to the oldest legends. Ancient wolves sworn to protect the throne itself. Immortal. Unkillable. The glowing eyes below suddenly lifted upward together. Toward Serafina. Toward Kale. Then the first sentinel stepped into the moonlight. And the entire ruined throne hall froze in horror. The first moon sentinels stepped fully into the light. Silence consumed the ruined throne hall. Every wolf present felt it instantly. Ancient power. Not corrupted like the eclipse wolves. Not twisted like the hollow crown.
Pure.
The sentinel towered nearly 8 feet tall in its armored wolf form, silver-black armor fused directly into its body like living metal. Moonlit runes glowed across its chest and down the massive spear clutched within clawed hands. Its eyes burned silver. Ancient. unforgiving. And behind it, more figures emerged from the hidden kingdom below. Hundreds. The lost guardians of the Moon Throne. The staircase rising from the abyss glowed brighter with every step they took toward the surface. Their armored forms moved with terrifying precision, neither hurried nor hesitant. They had waited centuries, and now their rulers had returned. At the edge of the fractured throne hall, Seraphina Vale felt her wolf stir violently beneath her skin. Not fear, recognition. The sentinel stopped halfway up the staircase, then slowly lowered its spear, and knelt. The movement echoed through the abyss behind it. One by one, every sentinel dropped to one knee. The sight shattered the chamber into stunned silence, because creatures like these did not bow. Not to alphas, not to kings. Yet hundreds of ancient guardians lowered themselves before Seraphina and Kale. The Moon Throne had acknowledged them. Kale's arm tightened instinctively around Seraphina's waist. The mate bond pulsed sharply between them.
Mine.
Yours.
Ours.
The connection no longer felt like separate emotions crossing between wolves. It felt unified now, stronger. As though the deeper their souls remembered each other, the less distance existed between them at all. Seraphina felt Kale's instincts as naturally as her own now. Protective rage, control, devotion, and beneath it all, an overwhelming certainty that he would kill every creature beneath the mountain before allowing harm to touch her. The realization warmed her chest unexpectedly. Then the lead sentinel spoke. Its voice echoed like ancient stone grinding beneath moonlight. The throne remembers its sovereigns. Every wolf in the chamber froze. Kale's eyes narrowed sharply. You still serve the throne? The sentinel lifted its silver gaze. We serve the bond. A chill swept through the ruined hall. The hollow crown lowered his eyes briefly, almost ashamed, because the ancient guardians had not recognized crowns. They recognized the mate bond itself. King and Luna together. Balance. The original rulers. Seraphina swallowed hard. The sentinel's glowing eyes shifted toward her fully. You carry the Moon Queen's soul. The words slammed into her chest. Another violent pulse exploded through the mate bond. And suddenly, the memories became clearer. Not flashes this time. Reality. Seraphina staggered as the vision overtook her completely. Moonlight poured across a massive throne chamber deep beneath the mountain. Silver banners lined endless marble halls. Ancient wolves bowed as she walked beside Kale. Not Kale exactly, but the king whose soul still lived within him. She felt the weight of a silver crown against her head, felt his hand against hers, felt love so deep it nearly broke her heart. Then,
blood.
Screaming, darkness erupting beneath the throne. Ancient gods clawing their way upward through fractured reality. The king pushing her toward the throne while shadows consumed him.
Seal it.
The command shattered through her soul. Seraphina gasped sharply as the vision broke apart. Kale caught her immediately. And this time, he remembered too. Not pieces. Everything. The ancient throne room. The war. Her death. His failure. Pain crossed Kale's face so violently that the entire mate bond shook with it. Seraphina felt every second of his grief. Every century of it. And suddenly she understood why Kale's wolf became so violently possessive around her. Because somewhere deep inside him, he remembered losing her once already. Kale pulled her closer instinctively. Too close. As though his wolf physically refused distance now. Seraphina looked up at him slowly. And for one devastating moment, they both remembered loving each other before this life ever began. The bond surged violently again. Silver and black power exploded around them in a storm powerful enough to force nearby wolves backward. The sentinels lowered their heads deeper instantly. The hollow crown closed his eyes briefly. The bond fully awakens. Darius looked moments from panic now. What does that mean? The lead sentinel rose slowly to its feet. Its silver gaze settled directly onto Kale. It means the throne has chosen. Kale's expression hardened immediately. We are not claiming anything until I understand what waits below. The sentinel's voice lowered. The prison weakens. Every torch in the ruined throne hall suddenly extinguished again. Darkness flooded upward from the abyss.
Cold.
Ancient.
Hungry.
The sentinels immediately turned toward the depths below. Not fearful. Ready. Then the lead sentinel spoke the words that froze the blood of every wolf present. The old gods are waking. Darkness breathed beneath the mountain. Not metaphorically. Not illusion. Something alive moved far below the hidden lunar kingdom, ancient enough that its mere awakening caused the stone beneath Black Hollow to groan like a dying beast. The sentinels immediately turned toward the abyss. Weapons raised. Silver eyes burning brighter. The lead sentinel stepped protectively in front of the staircase, descending toward the buried throne. The seal weakens faster than expected. Its ancient voice echoed through the ruined hall like distant thunder. Kale's expression hardened instantly. What seal? The sentinel's gaze shifted toward him. The prison beneath the moon throne. Silence followed. Then Seraphina felt it again. A pulse. Deep below the mountain. Ancient power surged upward through the mate bond violently enough to make her gasp. Kale immediately pulled her closer. The reaction was instinctive now. His body moved toward her before thought even formed. Protect her. Ground her.
Mine.
The possessive warmth wrapping through the bond steadied the overwhelming pressure instantly. Seraphina looked up at him briefly. And once again, she felt it clearly. He would burn kingdoms for her without hesitation. The terrifying thing was, part of her no longer doubted she would do the same for him. The realization sent heat through the bond. Kale felt it immediately. His dark eyes locked onto hers for half a second too long before the hollow crown interrupted. The old gods slept beneath the throne long before wolves ruled these lands. Every wolf in the chamber turned sharply toward him. Darius frowned. Gods are myths. The hollow crown smiled faintly. So were we. That silenced the room instantly. The ancient king stepped slowly toward the abyss, while darkness curled around his armor like living smoke. In the first age, before packs divided into kingdoms, the lunar gods walked beside wolves. Another pulse shook the mountain. The sentinels tightened their formation. The hollow crown continued. But gods do not love balance. Seraphina felt the truth of the words before he finished speaking. Bloodline memory stirred again. This time clearer than ever. Silver cities burning beneath black skies. Ancient wolves kneeling before towering creatures made from moonlight and shadow. Worship turning into slavery. Then war. The first lunar rulers sealing the gods beneath the earth itself. Seraphina staggered softly. Kale steadied her instantly. You're seeing more. She nodded weakly. They weren't protecting the throne. Her silver eyes widened. They were imprisoning something. The hollow crown looked at her carefully. At last, fear spread through the ruined hall. Because suddenly everything made horrifying sense. The throne was never simply power. It was a lock. And the mate bond, King and Luna together, was the key. Kale's jaw tightened instantly.
No.
The refusal came sharp. Absolute. We are not opening anything. The lead sentinel lowered its spear slightly. You may not have a choice. Outside the ruined fortress, wolves screamed again. The storm above Black Hollow darkened unnaturally as the blood-red moon disappeared behind moving shadow. Not clouds. Something larger. Something alive. The temperature inside the throne hall dropped violently. Then came the voice. Not from the abyss. From everywhere. Awaken us. The words slithered through the chamber like ice beneath skin. Several wolves collapsed instantly, clutching their heads. The southern envoys panicked outright. But Seraphina froze completely. Because the voice recognized her. Ancient Queen. The bond exploded violently. Silver power burst outward from Seraphina instinctively, while Kale's dark alpha energy surged to meet it. Together their powers formed a protective barrier around them and the nearest sentinels. The hollow crown's eyes widened slightly. The bond is accelerating. Kale growled low. Then stop it. But even as he spoke, another memory crashed through both of them simultaneously.
Not a vision this time.
A truth. The ancient king and queen, the souls tied to Kale and Seraphina, had not sealed the gods separately. They sealed them together. Only the combined bond possessed enough power to imprison beings older than the world itself. And now, their souls had returned. Kale inhaled sharply. Seraphina felt his fear for the first time. Not fear of battle, not death. Fear that history was repeating itself. She reached for his hand instinctively. The moment their fingers intertwined, the memories sharpened completely.
Love.
Ancient and eternal. A king kneeling before his Luna. A vow spoken beneath the first moon. Find me again. Seraphina's chest tightened painfully, because she remembered saying those words before dying. Kale remembered hearing them. The bond surged with devastating force. And somewhere deep beneath the mountain, something answered. The mountain answered the bond. A roar thundered upward from beneath the hidden kingdom, so powerful the entire abyss shook violently beneath Black Hollow. Ancient silver light erupted through the ruined throne hall, while the moon sentinels immediately slammed their spears into the stone in unison. The sound echoed like a warning across the buried city below. Something had heard them. Something ancient. At the center of the chaos, Kale Draven still held Seraphina's hand tightly within his own. And neither of them could let go, because the moment their fingers intertwined, the bond stopped feeling like memory. It became truth. The ancient vow echoed between them again. Find me again. Seraphina's chest tightened painfully as more fragments returned. Not flashes. Not dreams. A life. Moonlit gardens beneath the First Kingdom. Kale laughing softly while silver lanterns floated above them. His hands against her waist as he promised eternity beneath the first moon. Love so deep it transcended death itself. The force of the memory nearly brought her to her knees. Kale caught her instantly. Always him. The realization broke something open inside her. Because even now, through centuries and war and rebirth, he still reached for her first. The bond surged violently. Kale inhaled sharply as another memory struck him directly. The ancient throne chamber. Seraphina dying in his arms while darkness consumed the kingdom. Her blood across his hands. Her voice trembling as she whispered the vow. Find me again. Pain ripped visibly across Kale's face before he buried it beneath control. But Seraphina felt every second of it. Every century of grief. The mate bond no longer allowed distance between them. And suddenly she understood why his wolf had recognized her instantly after the rejection. He had been searching for her long before this life began. The realization shook her completely. Kale looked down at her slowly. Silver and black power spiraled around them harder now, reacting to the awakening memories. The sentinels lowered themselves further. The hollow crown watched in silence. Even Darius could no longer hide the fear in his expression. Because the ancient rulers were returning. Not physically. Something worse. Their souls remembered. Kale's thumb brushed slowly across the back of Seraphina's hand. The small touch grounded her instantly again.
Mine.
The possessive warmth rolled through the bond. But now Seraphina answered without fear. Yours. The response surged through Kale so violently his wolf nearly surfaced completely. The ruined throne hall shook. Ancient runes across the staircase descending into the abyss exploded brighter. The moon throne was reacting to them. The hollow crown finally spoke. The vow is restoring the bond faster than expected. Kale's eyes darkened immediately. What exactly happens when the bond fully awakens? Silence followed. Then the lead sentinel answered. The prison opens. Cold swept through the chamber instantly. Seraphina felt Kale's instincts sharpen violently around her. Protective. Dangerous. Prepared for war. But beneath all of it,
Fear.
not for himself. For her. The realization softened something inside Seraphina unexpectedly. She stepped closer instinctively until her body rested fully against his. Kale froze briefly. Then his arm wrapped around her waist immediately. Natural. Effortless. Like he had always belonged there. The bond calmed the moment they touched. The hollow crown noticed instantly. The throne responds strongest when the king and Luna stand united. Darius looked horrified. You speak as though they are already crowned. The hollow crown's dark eyes lifted toward the abyss below. They were crowned lifetimes ago. Another roar exploded beneath the mountain. Closer now. The silver lights moving through the hidden kingdom multiplied rapidly as ancient shadows shifted between the buried towers below. The old gods were waking faster, and the bond was accelerating it. Kale's jaw tightened. There has to be another way. The hollow crown looked almost sad. There wasn't before. The answer chilled the room. Seraphina's wolf stirred uneasily, not from fear of the gods, from the growing realization of what happened in their past life. They had sealed the prison together, and it killed them both. The bond pulsed sharply again. Kale felt the thought instantly. His hold tightened around her waist.
No.
The single word carried devastating certainty. Seraphina looked up at him. Kale's dark eyes locked onto hers completely. Whatever he saw through the bond made his expression harden further. You are not dying again. The vow in his voice shook her to the core. Because he meant it. Absolutely. Even against gods. The hollow crown turned slowly toward the abyss. Then, for the first time since arriving, he drew his blade. Ancient black steel emerged from shadow with a scream that echoed through the hidden kingdom below. The sentinels immediately rose into battle formation. Every spear pointed downward into the darkness. The mountain trembled violently again. Then came the sound. Not a roar. Laughter. Ancient. Massive. Inhuman. The old gods had awakened enough to know their jailers had returned. The laughter beneath the mountain grew louder. Ancient. Endless. The sound rolled upward through the hidden lunar kingdom like something vast turning in its sleep beneath the earth itself. The moon sentinels tightened formation instantly, silver spears raised toward the abyss, while glowing runes spread violently across the buried city below. The prison was weakening, and for the first time in centuries, the old gods knew exactly who had returned. At the center of the ruined throne hall, Kale Draven stood completely still beside Seraphina Vale. But inside him, everything had changed. The memories no longer came in fragments. He remembered all of it now. The First Kingdom, the Moon Throne, the war against the gods, and most painfully, her death. Kale saw it with devastating clarity. Seraphina bleeding in his arms beneath the collapsing throne chamber, while darkness consumed the kingdom around them. Her fingers trembling against his face. Her final breath. Find me again. The memory nearly shattered him. Even now, centuries later, the grief clawed through his chest like a fresh wound. And through the mate bond, Seraphina felt all of it. Every ounce of pain he carried from losing her once before. Tears burned unexpectedly in her eyes. Kale. His gaze snapped toward her instantly. Not distant. Not trapped in memory. Present. Because this time was different. This time he remembered before it was too late. The realization hardened something ancient inside him. The old king may have failed, but Kale would not. His wolf surged violently beneath the surface.
Meaning?
Protect her. Never lose her again. The possessive instinct no longer felt merely primal. It felt sacred. Absolute. Kale stepped fully in front of Seraphina as another pulse of darkness erupted from beneath the mountain. The throne hall trembled violently. Shadows twisted upward through the abyss like claws reaching toward the surface. The hollow crown looked toward the darkness grimly. They are testing the seal. Kale drew his blade slowly. Black steel gleamed beneath silver moonfire as ancient runes ignited across the weapon itself. The sentinels reacted immediately. Several lowered their heads. Recognition. The hollow crown noticed too. The king's blade remembers. Kale ignored him completely. His focus remained on the abyss, on the prison, on the threat beneath the mountain. But most importantly, on keeping Seraphina alive. The mate bond pulsed sharply again. This time Seraphina felt something new from him. Not fear. Determination.
Cold.
Unbreakable. She stepped closer behind him instinctively. You're thinking about the past. Kale's grip tightened around the sword hilt. I'm thinking about my mistakes. The answer settled heavily between them. Serafina felt the ancient grief still buried beneath his control. You didn't fail me. Kale turned toward her sharply. The intensity in his eyes stole her breath. I let you die. The rawness in his voice silenced the throne hall completely. Even the sentinels looked away, because the ancient king's guilt had survived death itself. Serafina moved toward him without hesitation. Her hands closed around his free hand gently, and instantly the bond surged warm between them. Look at me, she whispered. Kale obeyed immediately. The world around them seemed to disappear again. Only them. Only the bond. Serafina's voice softened. That was not this life. Kale's jaw tightened painfully. It still happened. Yes, she said quietly. But this time you remembered. The words struck him harder than any weapon. Because she was right. The ancient king had regained his memories too late. Too broken by grief and war to stop what came next. But Kale remembered now. Before the throne fully awakened. Before the gods escaped. Before losing her again. The realization changed everything. The bond pulsed violently. Agreement. Destiny shifting. The hollow crown watched them carefully. Then, for the first time, uncertainty crossed his ancient face. You would defy fate itself. Kale finally looked toward him. Dark power rolled through the ruined throne hall instantly. I would tear this world apart before I let history repeat itself. The vow shook the chamber. The sentinels straightened immediately. Even the abyss below reacted. Darkness surged upward violently. The old gods heard him, and they were furious. The laughter beneath the mountain stopped abruptly. Silence followed. Then came the voice. Ancient king. The sound crawled through the throne hall like poison. You could not save her before. Kale's wolf exploded forward instantly. A savage growl tore from him, powerful enough to crack the remaining throne pillars. This time, the entire hidden kingdom shook in response. Because the bond between King and Luna had become stronger than memory. Stronger than fate. And for the first time since the old gods began waking, something beneath the mountain felt fear. Silence followed Kale's vow. A terrible silence. The kind that came before kingdoms burned. Beneath the mountain, the ancient darkness shifted uneasily for the first time since awakening. The buried lunar kingdom trembled as black shadows recoiled from the silver-black power spiraling around Kale Draven and Serafina Vale. The old gods had felt it. Not merely defiance.
Change.
This time, the king remembered before fate could destroy them. And worse, the Luna remembered him too. The moon sentinels slowly lowered their spears. Not in surrender. Recognition. The lead sentinel's silver gaze fixed fully upon Kale. The cycle fractures. The hollow crown looked sharply toward the ancient guardian. You feel it. The throne does. Another pulse surged through the abyss beneath them. But this time the hidden kingdom did not react with hunger. It reacted with awakening. The buried silver towers below glowed brighter while ancient runes across the staircase ignited one by one like stars returning after endless darkness. The throne was responding differently now. Not opening. Listening. Kale stood unmoving at the edge of the abyss. Serafina still held tightly against his side while black and silver power twisted around them like living moonfire. The mate bond had become something terrifying. Ancient. Absolute. And now every creature beneath the mountain understood the truth. The bond between them was stronger than it had been in their first life. Serafina felt it too. The difference. The old memories still carried grief and tragedy, but now something else existed between them that had not existed before.
Choice.
In their past life, duty had bound them to the throne. In this life, they chose each other first. The realization shook her. Kale had not claimed her because of prophecy. Not because of power. Not because fate demanded it. He chose her before he remembered any of this. Before he knew what she carried. Before he understood who they once were. The bond pulsed warmly. Kale felt her realization immediately. His gaze lowered toward her. And for a brief moment, despite the war beneath the mountain and the gods awakening below them, Something softened in his expression,
Meaning,
but gentler now.
not ownership.
Devotion. Seraphina's chest tightened painfully. The hollow crown watched the exchange in silence, then finally whispered, "That did not happen before." Kale looked toward him sharply. "What?" The ancient king's black eyes darkened. "You loved each other in the first life." Pain flickered briefly across his face. But duty came first. The hidden kingdom rumbled again. The hollow crown continued quietly. This time, the bond formed before the throne awakened. The realization spread slowly through the chamber. Even the sentinels straightened, because that changed everything. The old gods did not fear the throne. They feared the bond controlling it. And now the bond had evolved beyond what existed before. The voice beneath the mountain returned suddenly. "Ancient Queen," the darkness twisted violently through the abyss. "You cannot escape what you are." Kale's wolf surged instantly. But before he could respond, Seraphina stepped forward. The movement shocked the chamber silent. Even Kale froze briefly. Silver moonfire curled around Seraphina's body as she moved toward the edge of the abyss itself. Toward the darkness.
Toward the gods.
And for the first time since awakening, her wolf fully surfaced beside her. Not physically, spiritually. A massive silver wolf appeared behind her in moonlight and flame, larger than any wolf present, its eyes glowing with ancient lunar authority. The hidden kingdom shook violently. The sentinels immediately dropped to one knee. The hollow crown stared openly in shock, because this was not merely royal bloodline power. This was Moon Queen authority. Seraphina's voice echoed unnaturally through the throne hall. "I remember what you did to this world." The darkness below recoiled. The gods had expected fear. Instead, they found her standing beside Kale willingly, choosing the bond, choosing him. The silver wolf behind Seraphina bared its teeth. And suddenly Kale's wolf answered. Dark power exploded through the throne hall as a massive black wolf formed beside the silver one, shadow and moonfire intertwining around both spirits instantly. King and Luna. Balanced. Equal. The hidden kingdom trembled harder than ever before. The old gods had not expected this. The bond between them was no longer simply awakening the prison. It was beginning to control it. Kale stepped beside Seraphina again, without hesitation. The black wolf moved with him, the silver wolf with her. Together they faced the abyss. The ancient voice beneath the mountain darkened.
Impossible.
Kale's eyes flashed silver-black.
Non.
His voice thundered through the buried kingdom. This time, he reached for Seraphina's hand again. And the moment their fingers intertwined, the entire moon throne ignited beneath the mountain. "We make our own fate." The moon throne awakened completely. Silver fire exploded upward through the hidden kingdom beneath Black Hollow, flooding the buried city in ancient lunar light. Towers that had slept for centuries blazed alive beneath the mountain while every rune carved into stone ignited at once. The entire world seemed to tremble, and at the center of it, Kale Draven and Seraphina Vale stood hand in hand as the bond between them transformed into something even the ancient sentinels had never witnessed before. The throne had chosen them both, not separately, together. The hidden staircase descending into the abyss widened slowly, ancient stone reshaping itself beneath silver moonfire. Massive lunar symbols glowed beneath their feet, while the moon sentinels lowered their spears in complete submission. The buried kingdom recognized its rulers. But beneath the throne, the old gods raged. The darkness below twisted violently as ancient voices screamed through the abyss in fury. They were losing control. The hollow crown stared openly at the throne now, black shadows rippling uneasily around his body. It should not be responding this way. The lead sentinel turned toward him slowly. The throne remembers balance. The ancient king's face darkened.
No.
Pain flickered briefly across his expression. The throne remembers love. Silence followed. Then Seraphina understood. In their first life, duty and sacrifice ruled the bond. But this time, Kale loved her before destiny ever revealed itself. And she loved him before remembering the throne. The realization changed everything. The old gods had prepared for rulers bound by obligation, not soulmates willing to destroy fate itself for each other. Another pulse surged through the hidden kingdom. But this time the darkness recoiled. The old gods were afraid. Kale felt it instantly. A slow, dangerous smile crossed his face for the first time since entering the buried kingdom. "You fear us." The ancient voice beneath the mountain roared violently. "You are mortal." Kale's wolf surged beside him in black moonfire. "Not enough for you to stop fearing." The abyss exploded with rage. Darkness slammed upward violently toward the staircase, only to shatter instantly against the silver-black power surrounding Kale and Seraphina together. The entire hidden kingdom froze, because the bond itself had blocked the attack. Not the throne, not the sentinels. The lead sentinel lowered to one knee again. "The throne has accepted the eternal bond." Elder Rowan looked moments from collapse. That bond only existed in prophecy. The hollow crown's gaze sharpened immediately. What prophecy? The elder swallowed hard. The prophecy of the eternal king and Luna. The throne hall fell silent again. Even the darkness beneath the mountain stilled. Seraphina frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" Elder Rowan looked toward them with visible awe. It was said one day the moon throne would awaken for rulers whose bond transcended death itself. Kale's grip on Seraphina's hand tightened instinctively. The old gods roared again beneath the mountain, because they understood the prophecy too. The eternal bond was never meant to free the prison. It was created to strengthen it forever. The realization shattered through the hidden kingdom. The gods had manipulated the cycle for centuries, ensuring the rulers always fell before the bond could fully awaken. But Kale remembered too early, and Seraphina chose him willingly. The cycle had broken. The hollow crown slowly lowered his blade, then finally whispered the truth none of them expected. "That is why they killed you first." Seraphina's chest tightened sharply. The ancient king looked directly at Kale. "In your first life, the gods feared what your bond could become." Memories surged violently through Kale again. The war, the betrayal, Seraphina dying before the throne fully awakened. Not coincidence. Murder. The old gods had targeted her deliberately. Rage, unlike anything Seraphina had ever felt, exploded through the mate bond. Kale's wolf surfaced fully beside him. Massive. Terrifying. Ancient black moonfire rolled through the hidden kingdom while every sentinel immediately bowed their heads lower. The gods beneath the mountains suddenly went silent, because they recognized the truth too late. This was no longer the same king they defeated before. Kale looked toward the abyss, with eyes glowing silver-black. Cold. Merciless. Protective. "You touched my mate once." The hidden kingdom trembled violently. The old gods began retreating deeper beneath the throne. Fear spread through the darkness. Kale stepped forward slowly beside Seraphina, and together, the king and Luna began descending toward the moon throne. The deeper they descended beneath Black Hollow, the more the world above ceased to exist. The hidden staircase stretched endlessly downward through silver mist and ancient moonfire, carved directly into the heart of the mountain itself. Massive pillars lined the path, each engraved with glowing runes older than modern pack history. The lost kingdom breathed around them. Alive. Awake. And watching. At the front of the descent walked Kale Draven beside Seraphina Vale, their hands still intertwined while black and silver power spiraled around them in shifting waves. Behind them, the moon sentinels followed silently in perfect formation. Even the hollow crown remained several steps behind now, not leading, watching, because the throne no longer answered to him. It answered to them. The realization unsettled the ancient king more than he admitted aloud. The deeper they moved into the buried kingdom, the stronger the mate bond became. Not overwhelming anymore. Natural. Effortless. Kale no longer had to fight to feel Seraphina through the bond. She existed beside his heartbeat now. Every emotion brushed against him instinctively. Her awe, her fear, her growing trust. And beneath it all, love beginning to bloom stronger than destiny itself. The realization nearly undid him, because Kale remembered what loving her had cost him once before. This time would be different. His wolf repeated the vow constantly beneath the surface. Never again. The silver city beneath the mountain unfolded before them slowly as the staircase widened into a massive lunar avenue lined with towering statues.
Kings, queens,
Guardians. Ancient rulers frozen in silver stone. Seraphina slowed suddenly. Her breath caught softly, because she recognized one of them. A queen standing beside a dark king, their hands joined exactly like hers and Kale's now. The statue looked like her. Not similar. Her. The same silver eyes. The same face. The same moonlit markings carved along the queen's arms. Kale saw the realization hit her instantly. You remember her. Seraphina nodded slowly. She was me. The words echoed heavily through the silent kingdom. The hollow crown lowered his eyes briefly. Yes. Kale's jaw tightened. Then why do I feel like she failed? The ancient king looked toward the throne city ahead. Because she died believing she saved everyone. A chill swept through the avenue. The sentinels remained silent. But Seraphina felt the truth through the bond immediately. There was more. Kale felt it too. What aren't you saying? The hollow crown stopped walking. For the first time since entering the hidden kingdom, something almost human crossed his expression. Regret. The prison weakened because of me. Silence followed instantly. Kale's gaze darkened lethally. The ancient king continued quietly. When the Luna died, the king lost control. Memories surged violently through the bond. Kale saw it clearly now. The ancient version of himself kneeling beside Seraphina's body while darkness consumed the throne chamber.
grief, rage.
Despair so violent it shattered the balance of the bond itself. The prison cracked because he broke first. Kale inhaled sharply. Seraphina immediately felt the guilt slamming through him. No, she whispered quickly. But he remembered now. The ancient king's grief weakened the throne long enough for the gods to survive. The hollow crown's voice lowered. You try to hold the prison alone. Pain crossed his face. It destroyed you. The darkness swirling around his body pulsed violently. Because the hollow crown standing before them was what remained after centuries of corruption and grief. Not evil. Broken. Seraphina's chest tightened painfully. The realization changed everything she thought she understood about him. Kale's expression hardened again. This time I won't lose her. The vow thundered through the bond. Absolute. The moon sentinels stopped walking simultaneously. Silver spears lowered toward the ground. The entire buried kingdom trembled, because something ahead had awakened. At the end of the avenue, the moon throne waited. Massive silver doors slowly opened by themselves, revealing a throne chamber large enough to contain an empire. Moonlight poured through the ancient hall despite the kingdom existing deep beneath the earth. At the center stood the throne itself. Not carved stone. Living moonfire shaped into silver crystal. Ancient. Beautiful. Terrifying. And chained beneath it, darkness moved. The old gods were directly below them now. The voice beneath the throne echoed softly through the chamber. Ancient king, ancient queen, welcome home. Kale immediately stepped slightly in front of Seraphina. Protective instinct surged through the bond again. But Seraphina touched his arm gently. And this time, he let her stand beside him.
Equal.
Balanced. Together. The throne reacted instantly. Silver light exploded across the chamber floor as ancient runes awakened beneath their feet. The hidden kingdom roared to life, and the old gods realized the eternal bond had finally returned. The throne room breathed. Ancient silver light pulsed through the vast chamber in slow waves while moonfire drifted through the air like falling stars. Towering pillars carved with forgotten lunar runes stretched endlessly upward into darkness, framing the massive moon throne standing at the center of the hidden kingdom. And beneath it, something monstrous moved. The shadows chained below the throne writhed violently now, pressing harder against the ancient seal as the eternal bond strengthened with every passing moment. The old gods knew exactly who stood before them, and they were desperate. At the base of the throne steps, Kale Draven tightened his hold around Seraphina Vale's hand instinctively. The mate bond pulsed warm and steady between them, grounding, strengthening.
Alive.
Every heartbeat now carried traces of the other. Kale felt Seraphina's emotions like currents beneath his own thoughts. Her awe, her fear, her growing certainty that they had been brought here for more than war. And Seraphina felt him too. The violent protectiveness buried beneath his calm expression. The ancient grief he still carried. And something new.
Hope.
The realization nearly undid her, because Kale no longer believed fate would destroy them. Not while he still breathed. The moon thrones suddenly flared brighter. Silver runes exploded across the chamber floor beneath them while the darkness chained below the throne roared violently upward. The voice beneath the abyss thundered through the kingdom. The bond weakens the prison. The moon sentinels immediately raised their spears. But Seraphina felt the truth instantly. The gods were lying. The bond was not weakening the prison. It was changing it. The throne no longer reacted with instability when she and Kale stood together. It stabilized, balanced. As though the throne itself had waited centuries for this exact bond to return. The hollow crown slowly approached the throne steps. This was never supposed to happen. Kale's eyes narrowed sharply. What do you mean? The ancient king stared at the glowing throne with something dangerously close to fear. The old rulers believed the throne required sacrifice to maintain the prison. His black eyes shifted toward Kale and Seraphina. But the throne never wanted sacrifice. Silence spread slowly through the chamber. Then Seraphina understood first. The ancient rulers had misunderstood the throne entirely. The prison weakened because the bond kept breaking.
Death. Loss. Grief.
The cycle repeated endlessly because the rulers never survived long enough together to complete the bond fully. The realization hit Kale moments later. And fury unlike anything Seraphina had ever felt exploded through the mate bond. The gods manipulated the cycle, again and again. Ensuring the Luna died first. Ensuring the bond shattered before reaching its full power. The throne never needed death. It needed unity. The old gods roared violently beneath the throne.
Lies.
The chamber shook hard enough to crack pillars. Darkness surged upward again, only to recoil instantly when Kale stepped directly beside Seraphina. Silver and black power erupted around them together. Balanced. Equal. The throne answered immediately. Ancient moonfire exploded across the chamber ceiling while the hidden kingdom itself seemed to awaken beneath their feet. The moon sentinels dropped to one knee again. Not submission. Recognition. The eternal bond was restoring the throne exactly as it was always meant to exist. The hollow crown stared at them in disbelief. All this time, pain crossed his face sharply. We were fighting the throne instead of understanding it. The darkness below the throne screamed louder now. Fear had fully entered the ancient voices. Because the old gods realized something catastrophic. The prison was becoming permanent. Kale stepped forward slowly, with Seraphina beside him. The closer they moved toward the throne, the brighter the chamber became. Moonlight burst through ancient crystal walls deep beneath the mountain while the silver runes along Seraphina's skin glowed in perfect harmony, with the dark lunar markings beginning to emerge along Kale's arms. King and Luna. The throne was marking them both. Seraphina's breath caught softly. Kale. He looked toward her immediately. And through the bond she felt it, not fear, wonder. Because he felt the throne recognizing her soul completely. Not as a weapon. Not as sacrifice. Home. The realization softened something inside him. Slowly, Kale lifted one hand against her cheek. The moment his skin touched hers, the throne chamber erupted in silver-black moonfire. The old gods screamed beneath the throne. The eternal bond had completed another step. And for the first time in thousands of years, the moon throne began sealing the darkness permanently. The old gods screamed beneath the throne. The sound shook the hidden kingdom violently as darkness slammed upward against the silver prison surrounding the moon throne. Massive cracks spread through the black void below, ancient shadows clawing desperately toward the surface. But the throne no longer obeyed them. It obeyed the bond. At the center of the throne chamber, Seraphina Vale and Kale Draven stood before the moon throne while silver and black moonfire spiraled around them together. The throne recognized them completely now.
King, Luna.
Eternal bond. Every heartbeat between them strengthened the seal beneath the mountain. The old gods had spent centuries ensuring this moment never happened. And now it was too late. The throne chamber erupted brighter as Kale stepped onto the first silver stair leading toward the throne itself. Instantly, the hidden kingdom reacted. Ancient runes ignited across every wall, while the moon sentinels lowered themselves to both knees in complete reverence. Even the hollow crown bowed his head, because the throne had accepted its true rulers. Seraphina moved beside Kale, without hesitation.
Equal.
Always beside him. The realization struck the throne chamber like prophecy fulfilled. Silver light exploded upward around them. And suddenly, the throne showed them the truth. Not memories, reality. The ancient king and queen had never fully awakened the eternal bond before death separated them. The prison weakened because grief shattered balance.
But now,
the bond between Kale and Seraphina had surpassed what existed in the first life entirely. Because love came before destiny. The old gods roared in fury beneath the throne. You belong to us. Kale's wolf surged instantly.
No.
His voice thundered across the hidden kingdom. We never did. The throne answered him. Moonfire erupted beneath the silver stairs as ancient lunar power flooded directly into the mate bond between him and Seraphina. Not corrupting, strengthening. The bond deepened violently. Seraphina gasped softly as Kale's emotions poured through her completely now. His devotion, his need to protect her, the unbearable grief of losing her once before. And beneath all of it, love so absolute it transcended death itself. Tears burned unexpectedly in her eyes, because she felt it fully now. Kale had loved her across lifetimes. The realization nearly shattered her heart. Kale felt her emotions instantly. Without thinking, he turned toward her completely. The throne chamber vanished around them again. Only the bond remained. Only them. Kale lifted one hand slowly against her cheek. You came back to me. The roughness in his voice undid something inside her completely. Seraphina leaned into his touch instinctively. So did you. The mate bond exploded. Silver-black moonfire burst across the throne chamber, hard enough to force the darkness beneath the throne backward. The old god screamed, because the eternal bond had reached full awakening. The moon throne blazed brighter than the moon above the world itself. The hidden kingdom shook violently. Then the throne spoke. Not in words, in truth. The prison can only be sealed willingly. Seraphina froze. Kale's expression darkened instantly. The throne was offering them a choice, not sacrifice. Union. The hollow crown finally looked upward sharply. That was hidden from us. The ancient king staggered slightly as realization struck him. The rulers were never meant to die. The chamber fell silent. The old gods had manipulated the ancient kingdoms into believing sacrifice was required. Again and again. For centuries. The cycle of death had strengthened them instead of destroying them.
But now,
Kale and Seraphina understood the truth. The throne required something else entirely.
trust, love,
Balance. The eternal bond itself became the seal. The darkness beneath the throne panicked violently. Ancient shadows surged upward in desperation. The moon sentinels immediately raised their spears. But Seraphina stepped forward first. Silver light wrapped around her body as the spirit of the great silver wolf emerged behind her again. Massive, royal, ancient. Kale's black wolf surfaced beside hers instantly. The two wolves stood united before the throne. Balanced.
equal.
The throne erupted in blinding moonfire. The old gods screamed in terror, because they finally understood what the eternal bond truly was. Not a weakness. Not prophecy. A weapon powerful enough to imprison gods forever. Kale reached for Seraphina's hand again. The moment their fingers intertwined, the throne accepted them completely. The moment the throne accepted them, the world changed. Silver-black moonfire exploded through the hidden kingdom beneath Black Hollow, surging across ancient towers and buried temples in violent waves of living light. The moon throne blazed brighter than the sun, while every rune carved into the mountain awakened at once. The eternal bond had fully formed, and the old gods were terrified. Beneath the throne, the darkness screamed violently as ancient shadows clawed upward against the prisons sealing them below.
But the seal no longer weakened.
It strengthened. Every heartbeat shared between Kale Draven and Seraphina Vale tightened the prison further. Not sacrifice, not death. Love itself became the seal. The realization shattered through the hidden kingdom like prophecy fulfilled. The Moon Sentinels immediately dropped their weapons and bowed completely before the throne. Even the hollow crown fell to one knee, because the throne had not merely chosen rulers. It had restored the original sovereign bond. At the center of the chamber, Kale and Seraphina stood surrounded by spiraling silver-black moonfire while the spirits of their wolves remained beside them. The massive black wolf moved protectively near Kale. The silver wolf beside Seraphina glowed like living moonlight. Then slowly, the two wolves approached each other. The hidden kingdom fell silent. Every sentinel lifted their heads, because ancient legends spoke of this moment. The wolves touched foreheads and merged. A violent pulse exploded outward instantly. The throne chamber erupted in blinding moonfire powerful enough to shake the mountain itself. Ancient runes spiraled across the floor while silver-black energy wrapped around Kale and Seraphina together like a living crown forged from the bond itself. The old god screamed beneath the throne, because the final union had begun. Seraphina gasped sharply as ancient lunar power flooded through her body. Not painful, beautiful. Warmth spiraled through the mate bond as the throne connected directly to their souls. And suddenly, they saw everything. The first lunar kingdom, the birth of the moon throne, the ancient rulers who discovered the eternal bond by accident while falling in love beneath the first moon. The gods fearing mortal wolves powerful enough to rival them. The war that followed. The centuries of manipulation afterward. Every cycle, every broken bond, every Luna murdered before the seal could fully form. Rage exploded through Kale instantly. The old gods had orchestrated endless suffering to prevent this exact moment. His wolf surged violently through the throne chamber. The merged spirit wolf behind them bared its glowing silver-black teeth toward the abyss below. The gods recoiled immediately. Fear filled the darkness, because the eternal bond was no longer incomplete. It had become whole. Kale looked toward the throne slowly, and, for the first time, the throne answered him directly. Not with words, with understanding. The eternal bond was never meant to create rulers. It was created to protect the world itself. Seraphina felt the truth instantly. The throne did not care about crowns. It cared about balance. Love freely chosen between equal souls created power even gods feared. The hidden kingdom trembled again. The darkness beneath the throne began collapsing inward violently now as the prison sealed tighter around the old gods. Ancient voices roared desperately. You cannot hold us forever. Kale's expression became terrifyingly calm. Yes, he said quietly. We can. The throne erupted again. Silver-black moonfire surged upward around him and Seraphina before slowly shaping itself into crowns above their heads. Not metal. Living lunar fire. The moon sentinels immediately lowered themselves fully to the ground. The hollow crown stared upward in stunned disbelief. The crown of the eternal bond. Tears burned unexpectedly in Seraphina's eyes. Because through the bond, she felt Kale's emotions completely now. Not fear. Not grief.
Peace.
For the first time across lifetimes, he no longer feared losing her. The prison beneath the throne stabilized completely. The screaming darkness weakened. The old gods were being buried once more. But this time, the seal would hold. Kale turned slowly toward Seraphina. moonfire reflected in his silver-black eyes, while the living crown glowed above them both. And despite the ancient kingdom bowing around them, despite the throne, despite the gods, his focus remained entirely on her. Always her. Kale lifted his hand gently against her cheek. "You chose me." The roughness in his voice nearly broke her. Seraphina smiled softly through tears. In every life, the mate bond pulsed once. Complete. And deep beneath the mountain, the old gods finally understood they had lost forever. The hidden kingdom knelt before them. Moon sentinels lowered their heads in complete reverence, while silver-black moonfire continued flowing through the ancient throne chamber, like living power reborn after centuries of darkness. The eternal bond had sealed the prison. The old gods were falling silent beneath the throne. And for the first time in thousands of years, the Moon Kingdom belonged to its rightful rulers again. At the center of the chamber, Seraphina Vale still stood beside Kale Draven with their hands joined tightly together. Neither of them had let go once since descending beneath Black Hollow. And now, they physically could not. The mate bond no longer felt separate from them. It had become part of their souls entirely. Seraphina felt Kale breathing beside her before hearing it, felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her own. And Kale felt her emotions like moonlight beneath his skin. Her relief, her exhaustion, her growing wonder as the hidden kingdom awakened around them. But stronger than everything else, her love. The realization nearly brought him to his knees. Because after lifetimes of grief, war, and loss, she still chose him. Always him. Kale looked down at her slowly. The living crown of silver-black moonfire hovered above her dark hair, while silver lunar markings glowed brighter across her skin. Beautiful. Ancient. His. The possessive thought rolled instinctively through the bond. This time Seraphina only smiled softly. Not afraid. Not resisting. Because she felt the truth behind it now. Devotion. The throne pulsed warmly behind them. The Moon Kingdom recognized the bond completely. The hollow crown finally rose slowly from his kneel. The darkness surrounding him had weakened. For the first time since they met him, the ancient corruption consuming his body no longer looked unstoppable. The prison ceiling beneath the throne was purifying the kingdom itself, including him. The realization visibly shook the ancient king. All this time, his voice broke slightly. "I thought the throne demanded suffering." Seraphina turned toward him carefully. It demanded balance. Pain crossed his face sharply, because he finally understood the tragedy of the past. The ancient king had lost his Luna, and in his grief, he broke the balance holding the prison together. The old gods manipulated his pain until it consumed him completely. Kale's gaze hardened slightly, but they failed. The hollow crown slowly looked toward him, and for the first time, he smiled. Not cruel, not broken.
Proud.
"Yes," he whispered. "They did." The hidden kingdom suddenly trembled again. But this time the shaking did not come from darkness. The throne was restoring itself. Silver light spread outward through the buried city, beyond the chamber walls. Ancient towers awakened fully while rivers of moonfire flowed beneath the kingdom streets like veins carrying life back into the lost empire. The Moon Kingdom lived again. The sentinels lifted their spears toward Kale and Seraphina together. Then the lead sentinel spoke. "The Eternal King and Luna have returned." The words echoed across the chamber like prophecy fulfilled. Seraphina's breath caught softly. Kale's arm wrapped around her waist instinctively as the kingdom bowed lower around them. But instead of pride, Seraphina felt uncertainty rise through the bond. The realization startled Kale instantly. "You're afraid." She looked toward the throne quietly. Not of them. Her silver eyes lifted toward the hidden kingdom. Of what happens now? The question settled heavily between them. Because the prison was sealed, the gods were defeated. But the world above still believed Seraphina was nothing. A wolfless omega rejected by her alpha son for her stepsister. They had no idea the true Luna Queen had returned. Kale's expression darkened instantly. The bond carried his anger sharply. They will know. The possessive certainty in his voice sent warmth through Seraphina's chest, but she still felt the weight of it.
The packs.
The kingdoms. The war waiting above. The hollow crown slowly approached them again. The world will not accept this easily. Kale's gaze sharpened lethally. I did not ask for acceptance. Moonfire surged around him. I asked for my mate. The throne chamber answered his fury instantly. Silver-black power exploded across the hidden kingdom while the sentinels struck their spears against the floor in thunderous agreement. The ancient kingdom had chosen its rulers, and now the surface world would be forced to face the truth. Seraphina was never weak, never wolfless, never meant to bow. She was born to rule beside the king who remembered her soul across lifetimes. Kale lowered his forehead gently against hers. The moment their skin touched, the mate bond pulsed with overwhelming warmth. We go back together, he whispered. The vow wrapped through her heart completely. Together. Always together. Above them, the blood-red moon slowly began turning silver once more. And across every kingdom in the world, wolves began feeling the return of the eternal bond. Far above the hidden moon kingdom, the world began to change. Across every pack territory, wolves lifted their heads toward the night sky as the blood-red moon slowly transformed back into silver. Ancient instincts stirred violently through bonds and bloodlines alike while power rippled across the world in waves no alpha could explain. Something had awakened. Something old. Something royal. Inside Black Hollow Fortress, panic spread through the upper kingdom halls as surviving warriors staggered beneath the sudden force pressing through the mountain itself. The Moon Kingdom had returned, and every wolf could feel it. At the center of the fortress throne hall, the former alpha heir who once rejected Seraphina Vale stood frozen beneath the shifting silver moonlight pouring through the shattered ceiling. His wolf trembled violently, not from fear of battle, submission. Something greater than alpha authority had entered the world. Beside him, Seraphina's stepsister clutched his arm tightly. What is happening? Neither of them noticed the growing unease spreading through the gathered wolves. Because deep inside every bloodline, instinct recognized the truth before the mind understood it. The true Luna had awakened, and she did not belong to them anymore. The fortress shook suddenly. Silver light exploded upward through the throne hall floor as ancient runes ignited across stone hidden beneath centuries of dust and rebuilding. The gathered wolves staggered backward. Some dropped to one knee instinctively. The former alpha heir's face paled.
No.
Because somewhere deep inside himself, he felt the mate bond rejection finally break completely. Not weaken. Sever. Whatever thread once connected him to Seraphina had vanished entirely.
Erased.
As though the moon itself rejected the false claim. Pain ripped through him sharply. Not because he loved her. Because instinct finally realized what he had thrown away. The true Luna. Royal blood. Power greater than any kingdom alive. His wolf recoiled violently beneath the realization. And beside him, Seraphina's stepsister suddenly understood too. The fear in her eyes sharpened instantly. She was never wolfless. No one answered, because now the truth felt obvious. The signs had always existed. The unnatural suppression, the hidden bloodline, the way wolves reacted strangely around her, the silver eyes, the rejection itself. The moon goddess had never allowed true mates to sever bonds so violently without consequence. But no one questioned it, because Seraphina was treated as weak, disposable.
Less.
The fortress trembled harder. Then the ancient doors of Black Hollow exploded open. Every wolf turned sharply, and silence swallowed the throne hall completely. Because descending through the shattered fortress entrance came the moon sentinels. Ancient armored wolves lined both sides of the hall in perfect formation, silver spears glowing beneath moonfire while the air itself seemed to bend around their presence. Then, Kale Draven entered Black Hollow, and every dominant wolf in the room immediately lowered their heads. Not by choice. Instinct. The Eternal King had returned. Black moonfire curled around Kale's body while the living lunar crown hovered faintly above his dark hair. Ancient markings glowed along his arms beneath black royal armor forged from the Moon Kingdom itself.
Terrifying.
Beautiful, untouchable, and beside him, Seraphina walked forward as the entire fortress stared in stunned silence. Silver moonfire wrapped around her flowing gown while glowing lunar markings shimmered softly across her skin. The living crown above her dark hair glowed like moonlight itself. No longer hidden, no longer suppressed. The true Luna Queen stood before them. The former alpha heir physically staggered backward. Disbelief crossed his face completely. Seraphina, she looked at him calmly. And for the first time, he truly saw her. Not the Omega servant forced into silence. Not the wolfless girl mocked by the pack. A queen. Power ancient enough to make the entire fortress kneel instinctively around her. Even the stepsister trembled visibly now, because standing beside Seraphina, she suddenly looked small, ordinary. Kale's arm wrapped possessively around Seraphina's waist as he guided her forward through the silent hall.
Mine.
The bond pulsed warmly between them, but now the entire kingdom felt it too. Not merely mates, rulers. The former alpha heir's wolf whimpered painfully beneath the pressure radiating from Kale alone. You rejected her, Kale said quietly. The softness in his voice terrified the room more than shouting would have. The alpha heir swallowed hard. I didn't know.
No, Kale interrupted coldly.
You didn't look. The truth struck harder than any blade. Because Seraphina had never truly been invisible. They simply chose not to see her worth. Kale looked across the gathered wolves slowly. This kingdom rejected its Luna. The moon's sentinels slammed their spears against the floor. Thunder echoed through Black Hollow. Then Kale pulled Seraphina gently closer against his side. But the moon chose her anyway. Silence crushed Black Hollow. No wolf moved. No one dared. The entire fortress remained frozen beneath the overwhelming pressure radiating from Kale Draven and Seraphina Vale standing together at the center of the throne hall. The eternal bond filled the room like living moonfire. Ancient, royal, absolute. And for the first time in her life, Seraphina was no longer invisible. Every eye in the kingdom finally saw her. The rejected Omega. The wolfless girl mocked by servants and ignored by nobles. The daughter hidden away while her stepsister was prepared for power. Now standing crowned beside the eternal king himself. The realization spread through the gathered wolves in visible waves of horror. Because suddenly every cruel word spoken against her felt dangerous. Every dismissal. Every humiliation. Every moment they allowed her to suffer. The moon sentinels lining the throne hall stood motionless, with silver spears raised beside ancient banners now glowing beneath moonlight. Black Hollow no longer belonged to its former rulers. The kingdom had already chosen. Kale's arm remained firmly around Seraphina's waist. Protective, possessive. But beneath the bond, she felt something deeper flowing through him now.
Pride.
The realization warmed her chest painfully. Kale wanted the world to see her. Not hidden, not suppressed. His Luna. His equal. At the front of the hall, Seraphina's father finally fell to his knees. The sound echoed sharply through the silence. Seraphina looked toward him slowly. And for the first time in years, he could not meet her eyes. Shame twisted visibly across his face. Seraphina, his voice broke. I was trying to protect you. Kale's expression darkened instantly. But Seraphina gently touched his arm before he could speak. The mate bond steadied immediately beneath her touch. Together. Always together. She stepped slightly forward from Kale's side. The entire hall watched her carefully. Her father trembled harder beneath the silver glow filling the chamber. I hid your bloodline because they would have killed you. Pain crossed his face sharply. Your mother knew the old prophecies. She knew what you were. The words rippled through the hall. Seraphina's pulse quickened. My mother knew? Her father nodded weakly. She carried royal lunar blood. The fortress fell silent again. Even the nobles looked shaken now. Because royal bloodlines were believed extinct. Destroyed centuries ago after the fall of the Moon Kingdom. But Seraphina's mother had survived. Hidden. protected. Then Seraphina understood the truth. She suppressed my wolf. Tears filled her father's eyes.
No.
His voice cracked. She sealed your power to hide you from those hunting the bloodline. The realization struck hard. Her mother never believed Seraphina weak. She protected her, even through death. Kale felt the grief and understanding crashing through the bond instantly. Without hesitation, he pulled Seraphina gently back against his side, grounding her. The small gesture steadied her breathing immediately.
Mine. Safe. Loved.
The warmth of it nearly shattered her. Across the hall, Seraphina's stepmother suddenly stepped forward in panic. She was never supposed to inherit anything. The words exploded through the silence. Fear twisted her expression violently now. You promised my daughter would become Luna. The entire hall recoiled. Because, finally, the truth stood exposed openly. This was never about destiny, or the kingdom, or tradition. It was greed. Kale's gaze lifted slowly toward the stepmother. The temperature inside the throne hall dropped instantly. You tried to erase the true Luna. The softness in his voice terrified the room. The stepsister burst into tears immediately. I didn't know. But Seraphina looked at her quietly. And through the bond, Kale felt the painful truth inside her.
She wanted to believe that.
Wanted desperately to believe her stepsister never understood the cruelty allowed against her. But deep down, she remembered the smiles, the mocking, the satisfaction, the silence every time Seraphina suffered. The stepsister knew enough. Kale's wolf stirred dangerously beneath the surface. But before he could speak, Seraphina stepped forward again. The silver crown above her head glowed brighter. And suddenly the entire hall lowered instinctively. Not from fear. Recognition. The true Luna stood before them, fully awakened now. Seraphina's voice echoed softly through the chamber. You made me believe I was nothing. Pain crossed several faces instantly. Because the entire kingdom shared the guilt now. Her silver eyes slowly lifted across the gathered wolves. But the moon never did. The eternal bond pulsed violently. Silver-black moonfire spread through the throne hall floor beneath her feet. And every wolf present felt the truth thunder through their bloodlines at once. The Luna they rejected had returned stronger than fate itself. The throne hall remained silent long after Seraphina's words faded. No wolf dared speak. Because the truth standing before them was undeniable now. The rejected Omega they mocked had become the most powerful Luna alive. And beside her stood the king chosen by the moon itself. At the center of the shattered hall, Seraphina Vale stood calm beneath the silver glow pouring through Black Hollow, while Kale Draven remained at her side like living shadow wrapped around moonlight. Untouchable together. The eternal bond pulsed steadily between them.
Warm.
Complete. And every wolf in the kingdom felt it. The former alpha heir still knelt several feet away, his breathing uneven while his wolf recoiled painfully beneath the overwhelming force radiating from Kale alone. But worse than fear was regret. The realization slowly destroying him from the inside out. He rejected her, not because she was weak, because he believed she was beneath him. And now the moon itself had crowned her queen. The irony carved through the hall like a blade. Kale watched the former alpha heir silently for several long moments, then finally spoke. Look at her. The command echoed softly through the chamber. The former heir lifted his eyes slowly toward Seraphina, and visibly broke, because now he saw everything he refused to see before. Her quiet strength, her grace, the loneliness hidden behind years of silence, and the ancient lunar power burning inside her soul. His wolf whimpered painfully. Mate. The severed instinct still remembered, too late. Seraphina felt the grief crash through him. But strangely, it no longer hurt her. The bond rejection once felt like death itself. Now it felt distant, small. Because standing beside Kale, she finally understood something important. The rejection never destroyed her worth. It revealed where she never belonged. Kale felt the realization immediately through the bond. Pride surged warmly through him again.
Mine. Loved.
Chosen. Seraphina's heartbeat softened beneath the possessive warmth flowing through the connection. The former alpha heir lowered his head slowly. I was wrong. The words sounded broken, but Kale's expression remained cold. You are cruel. Silence followed, because that was the deeper truth. The heir swallowed hard. Yes. Seraphina looked at him quietly, and for the first time since returning to Black Hollow, she no longer saw the man who shattered her beneath the moon ceremony. She saw weakness, fear, a wolf raised to value power and appearances above truth. And now he had lost everything because of it. Beside him, the stepsister trembled visibly. Tears stained her face while panic twisted through her expression. What happens to us? Kale's gaze lifted toward her slowly. The entire hall stiffened instantly beneath the darkness, moving behind his silver-black eyes. But before he could answer, Seraphina stepped slightly forward. Kale immediately looked toward her. The mate bond brushed softly between them. Trust me. The silent request moved through him instantly. Kale exhaled slowly, then nodded once. The throne hall visibly relaxed, because everyone understood something terrifying now. The king listened to his Luna. Seraphina turned toward her stepsister fully. You spent your entire life trying to become what the moon never chose. Pain crossed the stepsister's face sharply. You hated me because you thought my existence threatened yours. The stepsister began crying harder, but Seraphina's voice remained calm. You already had everything I wanted. Silence spread through the hall again. Because it was true. Seraphina never wanted crowns, or power, or revenge. She wanted kindness, family, love. Things they denied her while chasing status instead. The stepsister lowered her head completely, shame finally replacing jealousy. Kale watched Seraphina carefully now, and through the bond, he understood what she was doing. Ending the cycle.
No cruelty. No vengeance. Strength.
The realization deepened his love for her so fiercely it nearly overwhelmed him. The moon sentinels standing along the hall lowered their spears slightly. Even they recognized true Luna authority now. Not domination. Balance. The hollow crown stepped forward slowly from the shadows near the ruined throne. The Moon Kingdom was once destroyed by vengeance. Every wolf turned toward him. The ancient king's dark eyes settled on Seraphina. But mercy, a faint smile crossed his face, is what makes queens eternal. The words settled heavily through the chamber. Seraphina looked toward Kale slowly. He was already watching her. Always watching her. The intensity of devotion in his gaze stole her breath for half a second. Because there was no hesitation in him anymore. No doubt. No fear of the bond. Only certainty. Kale stepped toward her until the entire world seemed to narrow again.
Just them.
His hand brushed gently against hers. And instantly the eternal bond pulsed brighter through the fortress. The gathered wolves lowered instinctively again. The moon itself answered them. Kale's voice lowered softly enough that only she truly heard it. They tried to bury the moon inside you. Seraphina's chest tightened painfully. His thumb brushed slowly across her hand. But now the entire world will kneel before it. The moon above Black Hollow shone silver again. For the first time in centuries, the kingdom no longer felt cursed. The oppressive darkness that had haunted the fortress for generations had vanished completely, replaced by ancient lunar energy flowing through the mountain itself like the kingdom had finally awakened from a long nightmare. And every wolf could feel who caused it. At the center of the throne hall, Seraphina Vale stood beside Kale Draven while the eternal bond continued pulsing through the fortress in steady waves of silver-black moonfire. No one questioned their authority anymore. The kingdom itself had already bowed. Outside the shattered throne hall windows, wolves gathered across the castle grounds beneath the restored moonlight. Warriors,
Servants,
elders, entire bloodlines. And one by one, they began kneeling. The movement spread outward across Black Hollow like a tide. Not fear. Recognition. The true Luna had returned. Inside the hall, Seraphina stared silently at the sight beyond the windows. The same kingdom that once ignored her existence now lowered itself willingly beneath her presence. The irony felt surreal. Kale stepped closer behind her instinctively, his arm wrapped carefully around her waist as his chin lowered briefly near her temple. Protective.
Grounding.
The bond warmed immediately beneath the touch. "You're overwhelmed." His voice remained low enough for only her to hear. Serafina exhaled softly. "A little." Kale's thumb brushed gently against her side. "You don't have to carry this alone." The quiet promise nearly undid her, because for most of her life, she had carried everything alone.
Pain.
Isolation. Humiliation.
Fear.
But now every time she stumbled emotionally, Kale steadied her before she even asked. The realization deepened the bond further.
Meaning.
Safe.
Loved.
The warmth of it spread through her chest completely. Across the hall, the former alpha heir watched them in silence. And the pain inside him worsened, because now he finally understood the true cruelty of what he lost. Not power, not status. Her. The way Kale looked at Serafina held something he never once offered her. Reverence. The former heir lowered his eyes sharply. Shame consumed him completely now. The hollow crown slowly approached the broken throne near the back of the chamber. Silver moonlight illuminated his ancient face, while the corruption once twisting around him continued fading. The prison's ceiling beneath the Moon Kingdom was healing him too. The old king traced one hand slowly across the ruined throne. This kingdom forgot what Luna power truly was. Elder Rowan lowered his head solemnly. "We taught strength as dominance." The hollow crown's dark eyes lifted toward Serafina. But the moon chose balance instead. The truth settled heavily through the hall. Because Serafina ruled the room without threats, without violence, without demanding obedience. The kingdom bowed because it felt her strength naturally. The stepsister remained kneeling near the center of the hall, trembling beneath the weight of everything unfolding around her. Finally, she looked towards Serafina weakly. "What happens now?" Silence followed, because everyone wanted the answer. Would the true Luna seek vengeance? Would the Eternal King destroy the bloodline that rejected his mate? Kale's wolf stirred darkly beneath the question. The possessive instinct inside him still wanted punishment, still wanted every wolf who hurt Serafina to suffer for it. But through the bond, he felt her heart clearly. She didn't want revenge. She wanted peace. The realization softened his anger instantly. Kale looked toward the gathered wolves slowly, then toward the former alpha. "This kingdom survives because my Luna allows it." The words thundered through the hall. Several wolves visibly paled, because they understood immediately. Kale would have burned Black Hollow to the ground for her without hesitation. Serafina touched his arm gently. The bond pulsed warm again. Together. Balanced. The hollow crown watched them carefully, then finally smiled faintly. The eternal bond restored more than the throne. Kale's gaze narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" The ancient king looked toward the kneeling wolves outside the shattered hall windows. For centuries, kingdoms ruled through fear. His dark eyes shifted toward Serafina. But now they remember what loyalty freely given looks like. The realization spread slowly through the chamber. This was not merely the return of royal blood. It was the return of an entirely different kind of rule. One the world had forgotten. Serafina stepped slowly toward the shattered windows overlooking Black Hollow. The wolves outside immediately lowered themselves further beneath her gaze. Thousands of eyes looked toward her now, waiting,
Hoping.
The kingdom held its breath. Kale stopped beside her instantly. Not before her. Beside her.
Equal.
Always equal. The silver moonlight wrapped around them together. King and Luna. Darkness and moonfire. The eternal bond alive between them. Serafina looked over the kingdom that once rejected her, then finally spoke. And every wolf in Black Hollow heard her voice. "This kingdom will never again decide someone's worth by power alone." Silence followed. Then slowly, the wolves bowed deeper. Not because they were commanded to, because they believed her. The Moon Kingdom remained awake long after the kneeling ended. Silver light flowed endlessly through Black Hollow while the ancient fortress slowly transformed beneath the restored power of the eternal bond. Cracked stone repaired itself. Forgotten lunar symbols reappeared beneath centuries of dust. Towers once dark now glowed beneath the silver moon hanging above the kingdom. The world itself was changing around them, and at the center of it, Kael Draven and Seraphina Vale finally stood alone together for the first time since the throne awakened. The balcony overlooking Black Hollow remained silent except for the distant sounds of wolves rebuilding the kingdom below. Moonlight wrapped around Seraphina's silver gown while Kael stood behind her, one arm around her waist, holding her against him as though instinct still feared letting her out of reach. Not possession now. Relief. The mate bond pulsed softly between them. Complete.
Alive.
No longer fractured by destiny or interrupted by death. Seraphina leaned back slightly against his chest. They never survived before. Kael's hold tightened instantly. The old memories still haunted him. The ancient throne chamber. Her dying in his arms. The unbearable silence after losing her. But now when he looked at her, she was here. Breathing. Warm beneath his hands.
Alive.
And the realization still felt almost unreal. His lips brushed softly against her temple. No, he admitted quietly. His voice roughened slightly. But we did. The words settled between them like something sacred, because for the first time across lifetimes, the eternal bond had fully formed without loss destroying it first.
No sacrifice.
No shattered kingdom. No grief consuming the throne. Just them. Together. Seraphina closed her eyes briefly as the bond warmed deeper between them. She felt everything inside Kael now. The fierce protectiveness that never faded. The devotion that crossed lifetimes. The overwhelming love he no longer tried to hide from her. And beneath all of it,
peace.
The ancient grief that once consumed him had finally begun healing. Kael lowered his forehead gently against hers. I spent lifetimes trying to find you again. The raw honesty in his voice nearly broke her heart. Seraphina lifted one hand against his face softly. And you did. The mate bond pulsed brighter instantly. Silver-black moonfire curled around them beneath the balcony as the moon kingdom itself answered the connection between its king and Luna. Far below, wolves looked upward instinctively. Not fear. Wonder. Because every wolf alive could feel it now. The eternal bond no longer belonged only to legend. It stood before them.
Alive.
The hollow crown watched from the shadows inside the balcony entrance quietly. The corruption twisting around him had nearly vanished completely now. Without the old gods poisoning the throne, the ancient king no longer looked like a monster forged from grief. Only tired.
Old. Free.
You changed the cycle, he said softly. Kael looked toward him carefully. The hollow crown smiled faintly. The throne no longer feeds on loss. Seraphina's chest tightened unexpectedly. All those centuries. All those rulers destroyed by manipulation and grief. And now it was finally over. The ancient king lowered his eyes briefly. The kingdoms will come. Kael's expression darkened slightly. The outside world would not ignore what happened at Black Hollow. The silver moon. The awakening of the Moon Kingdom. The return of royal blood. Entire Alpha territories were already feeling the shift spreading through their bonds and bloodlines. Some would fear them. Some would challenge them. But most would recognize them. Not because Kael demanded obedience. Not because Seraphina wore a crown. Because instinct itself acknowledged what they were. The Eternal King. The Luna Queen. The hollow crown's gaze shifted toward the horizon. They will bow because the moon recognizes you. The truth settled heavily into the night air. The world had always been fractured by dominance. Stronger wolves ruling weaker ones through fear and power. But Kael and Seraphina represented something older. Balance. Strength beside compassion. Power beside devotion. The moon had chosen rulers who stood as equals. And wolves everywhere could feel the difference. Seraphina looked toward the distant kingdoms beyond Black Hollow. What happens now? Kael turned fully toward her. Moonlight reflected in his silver-black eyes, while the living lunar crown shimmered faintly above his dark hair. "Now," he said quietly, "we return home. Not Black Hollow, his kingdom, the territory of the Alpha King. But they would not return as they once were. Not merely mates. Not merely rulers. Something greater. The eternal bond itself walked beside them now. Kale's hand intertwined with hers naturally, and instantly the moon above the kingdom blazed brighter. Far beyond Black Hollow, wolves across every territory suddenly lowered themselves instinctively beneath the silver sky. Not commanded, recognizing. The king and Luna had returned, and this time, they would rule together. The Moon Kingdom slept beneath silver light. For the first time in centuries, peace existed within its walls. The old gods had fallen silent beneath the throne. The fortress no longer carried the weight of grief and bloodshed that haunted it for generations. Moonfire drifted softly through the kingdom towers while wolves below celebrated the return of the eternal king and Luna beneath the restored silver moon. But far above the kingdom, inside the private chambers prepared for them within the ancient palace, Kale Draven and Seraphina Vale stood alone together. And the bond between them had never felt stronger. Moonlight spilled across the chamber through towering crystal windows, illuminating silver curtains and ancient lunar markings carved into the walls. The room itself seemed alive with quiet magic, responding to the presence of its king and Luna. But neither of them paid attention to the palace around them. Only each other. Kale stood near the window watching Seraphina silently as she moved slowly through the room, her silver gown glowing softly beneath the moonlight. Beautiful. The thought moved through him with overwhelming force. Not because of crowns. Not because of prophecy. Because she was Herschel F. The woman who survived rejection, betrayal, loneliness, and destiny itself. Yet still chose kindness. Still chose him. The realization nearly overwhelmed him again. Seraphina felt it instantly through the bond. Her eyes lifted toward him slowly. Kale's expression softened the moment their gazes met. No walls remained between them anymore. The mate bond carried everything openly now. Love, need, devotion, the unbearable relief of surviving what once destroyed them. Seraphina stepped closer slowly. Kale did the same. Neither rushed, because for the first time across lifetimes, they finally had time. No war.
No prophecy forcing sacrifice.
No throne demanding loss. Only them.
Together.
The mate bond pulsed warmly between them as Seraphina stopped directly in front of him. Kale lifted one hand carefully against her cheek. Even now his touch carried reverence. As though some part of him still feared she might disappear if he held her too tightly. Seraphina covered his hand gently with hers. "I'm here," she whispered softly. The words shattered something inside him completely. Kale lowered his forehead against hers with a rough exhale. "You have no idea what that means to me." But she did. Through the bond, she felt every lifetime of grief finally loosening inside him. The ancient king who once lost her no longer stood alone in darkness. She came back, and this time, they survived. Seraphina rose slightly onto her toes and kissed him softly. The mate bond exploded instantly. Warmth surged through both of them as silver-black moonfire curled around the chamber walls. The kingdom itself seemed to react to the connection between them, but the kiss remained gentle.
Slow.
Meaningful. Not desperation.
Choice.
Kale deepened the kiss carefully, one arm sliding around her waist as he pulled her fully against him.
Mine.
The possessive pulse moved through the bond. Seraphina answered immediately. Yours. Emotion crashed through Kale so violently he nearly lost control of the bond entirely. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Seraphina melted against him without hesitation. Every touch between them carried centuries of longing finally fulfilled. Kale's hands trembled slightly as they brushed along her back. Not from uncertainty, from overwhelming emotion. "You chose me before knowing who I was," he whispered against her lips. Seraphina smiled softly. "So did you." The truth settled between them beautifully. Their bond was never built on power, or crowns, or prophecy. It was built on love. Kale kissed her again slowly, and this time the world around them disappeared completely. The moonlight, the palace, the kingdom waiting beyond the walls. None of it mattered. Only this. Only each other. The mate bond wrapped around them like living warmth as Kale carried her gently toward the ancient bed surrounded by silver curtains and moonlit crystal. And, for the first time across lifetimes, the Eternal King and Luna loved each other without fear of losing what fate once stole from them. Not rushed, not tragic, tender,
Passionate.
chosen freely beneath the silver moon that finally blessed their bond instead of mourning it. And as the night deepened around them, the eternal bond completed itself fully, not through sacrifice or war, but through love returned at last. Every touch carried emotion now. Adoration,
Trust. Desire.
devotion so complete it felt sacred across lifetimes. The mate bond no longer merely connected them, it revealed them fully to each other. Every brush of skin, every breath shared between them carried meaning deeper than words could reach. Kale looked at Seraphina as though the moon itself had shaped her only for him, and the reverence in his gaze nearly unmade her. Not because she was Luna, not because she wore a crown, because after everything the world did to her, she still remained soft where it mattered, still capable of love, still capable of trusting him completely with her heart. Kale's hands moved slowly along her arms, memorizing her as though he feared even now that this might somehow be another dream stolen by fate. "You're beautiful," he whispered roughly. But the words felt too small for what he truly meant. Beautiful was the silver glow dancing across her skin beneath the moonlight. Beautiful was the strength hidden beneath years of pain. Beautiful was the way she looked at him without fear. The realization overwhelmed him completely. Kale kissed her again, slower this time, savoring the warmth of her lips while his hands settled gently at her waist. Seraphina melted against him with quiet trust, her fingers sliding into his dark hair as the bond surged warmly between them.
Mean me.
The possessive pulse no longer carried dominance, only devotion. Seraphina answered him instinctively through the bond. Always. Emotion crashed through Kale so hard it stole his breath. His forehead lowered briefly against hers as he exhaled shakily, overcome by the simple truth that she was truly here.
Alive.
Loving him freely. Choosing him not because destiny demanded it, but because her heart did. He kissed along her jaw slowly, his touch reverent, worshipful. Every inch of her mattered to him. Every scar left by loneliness. Every hidden ache she carried silently for years. Kale wanted to erase all of it, not by forgetting it existed, but by loving her so completely she would never again question her worth. Seraphina trembled softly beneath the intensity of the emotion flowing through the bond. Because she felt him too. The ancient grief finally healing inside him. The awe he carried every time he touched her. The terrifying depth of his love. No one had ever looked at her the way Kale did. As though touching her was something sacred. His hands brushed carefully along her back, while moonlight wrapped around them both in silver and black warmth. "You were never meant to beg for love," he whispered against her skin. The words shattered something fragile inside her. Tears burned briefly in Seraphina's eyes as she held him tighter. Because for most of her life, love had always felt conditional, earned, fragile. But Kale loved her as though it was the most natural thing in the world. As though his soul had recognized hers long before either of them were born. The mate bond pulsed around them gently while the Moon Kingdom slept peacefully beneath their chamber windows. And, for the first time across lifetimes, the Eternal King and Luna gave themselves fully to each other without fear that dawn would steal them apart again. Morning arrived differently now. The world no longer woke beneath fear. Silver sunlight spilled across the mountains surrounding Black Hollow, while moonfire shimmered gently through the restored kingdom towers below. Wolves filled the streets not with panic or submission, but hope. For the first time in generations, the kingdom breathed freely. And at the highest balcony overlooking the awakening realm, Kale Draven stood beside Seraphina Vale as dawn painted silver light across the world below them. The mate bond between them felt different after the night they finally completed it.
Deeper.
Peaceful. Alive in a way neither of them had fully understood before. Seraphina could feel Kale's heartbeat beside her like it existed within her own chest now. His emotions brushed softly against her consciousness. Steady warmth, fierce devotion, and the quiet awe that still lingered every time he looked at her. And Kale. Kale felt whole for the first time across lifetimes. No emptiness remained inside him anymore. No grief waiting beneath his ribs. Only her. Only them. The realization still overwhelmed him in quiet moments like this. His arm wrapped naturally around Seraphina's waist as they looked across the kingdom awakening beneath the silver dawn. "It feels different," Seraphina whispered softly. Kale kissed the top of her head gently. "Because it is." Below them, wolves moved through Black Hollow with growing wonder. Ancient lunar gardens hidden beneath centuries of ruin had begun blooming again overnight. Moonlit rivers once buried beneath stone now flowed openly through the kingdom streets, while silver banners carrying the mark of the eternal bond rose above fortress towers. The old kingdom was gone. Something new had been born in its place. The kingdom of the Silver Moon. Not ruled through fear. Not ruled through dominance. But through balance. The hollow crown approached quietly from behind them, no longer cloaked in darkness or corruption. Though ancient sorrow still lingered in his eyes, he finally looked like a king rather than a ghost trapped between life and grief. "You restored what we destroyed," he said softly. Kale's gaze remained on the kingdom below. "No," he answered quietly. His thumb brushed gently across Seraphina's hand. "We changed it." The old king smiled faintly, and for the first time in centuries, it reached his eyes. Messengers had already begun arriving from neighboring territories before dawn. Entire Alpha kingdoms requesting audience. Not to challenge them, to recognize them. Because the moment the eternal bond completed beneath the silver moon, wolves across every bloodline felt it instinctively. The world had changed. The old systems built on fear and hierarchy no longer felt absolute. The moon itself had chosen different rulers. Seraphina watched the kingdom below thoughtfully. "They're afraid." Kale nodded once. "Some are." The bond pulsed softly between them, but neither of them feared what came next anymore. Because for the first time in history, the Eternal King and Luna survived long enough to build a future. Not merely save the world from darkness. Live within it together. The realization softened Seraphina's expression. A future. Kale looked at her slowly. And suddenly the bond flooded with emotions, so deep they nearly stole her breath.
Love. Hope.
And something else. Visions. The mate bond shimmered softly between them as flashes of the future surfaced unexpectedly. Children running through moonlit palace gardens. Silver and black wolves racing beneath ancient trees. A little girl with Seraphina's silver eyes laughing while Kale lifted her into his arms. A sun standing proudly beside the moon sentinels beneath glowing banners. Not prophecy.
Possibility.
Legacy. Seraphina inhaled sharply. Kale felt the visions too. His expression changed instantly. Not fear. Wonder. Because after lifetimes defined by survival and loss, they were finally allowed to imagine something beyond tragedy. A family. A kingdom built on love instead of fear. A future where their children would never question their worth the way Seraphina once had. The mate bond wrapped around them warmly. Chosen. Always chosen. Kale lowered his forehead gently against hers beneath the silver dawn. Our legacy begins now. Below them, thousands of wolves gathered across the kingdom courtyard as the silver banners of the eternal bond rose into the morning sky. And one by one, the kingdoms of the world began arriving beneath the restored Moon Kingdom, not because they were conquered, but because they finally recognized their true king and Luna,